Chapter 166. Bang! Under everyone's watchful eyes, the ground in front of the two combatants began to crack inch by inch with a muffled sound. Like a spider web, cracks began to spread across the ground. The shock waves from the impact spread outwards, causing the ground to crack inch by inch and send gravel flying in all directions. Many of the spectators felt a stinging pain on their cheeks. Some of the gravel even left deep cuts on their faces, causing them to bleed profusely. "Step back!" the preceptor hurriedly shouted. The entire auxiliary police force, who had lost their heads out of fear, immediately retreated and looked towards the center of the battlefield with fearful expressions. "We'll step back as well." On the other hand, Xia Shi was the one who made the decision for the fairy tale side. Under his command, everyone retreated a certain distance away from the gravel that was flying towards them like bullets. Everyone's eyes were glued to the scene before them. Their eyes were filled with shock at Ryuteru's new identity and power, as well as shock at Noah's ability to hold his own against Ryuteru without falling into a disadvantageous position. Bang! Then, with another muffled sound, two figures flew out from the center of the battlefield where the shockwaves were spreading outwards. They scraped against the ground, creating two long trenches. It was not until they were more than 10 meters away from each other that they steadied themselves and looked at each other. Upon closer inspection, the expressions of Noah and Rentaro, who were standing opposite each other from a distance, were also different. Rentaro was tightly gripping his pitch-black metal prosthetic arm. The prosthetic leg on his right foot was also tightly fastened to the ground. His prosthetic eye, which had a geometric pattern on it, was staring at the figure opposite him. His chest was heaving up and down, and his face was slightly pale. It seemed that he had expended a lot of energy. Noah, on the other hand, was still holding the dazzling knight's sword. He wasn't panting, and his expression was still as steady as before. Other than his clothes being slightly dirted, he didn't show any other signs of abnormality. At this point, it was obvious who was giving their all in this battle, and who was still at ease. Noah looked at Ryuteru, who was panting heavily, and a heartfelt smile finally appeared on his face. "You're quite capable, aren't you?" "So that's how it is, Rentaro. So this is the power you've been hiding all this time. Ever since I met you, I felt that you weren't simple at all. You've really hidden it well. I'll return the same to you." Ryutaro calmed his breathing and looked at Noah with a serious expression. "I didn't expect that even after releasing my powers, I still wouldn't be able to defeat you. It's no wonder you have the ability to train an initiator at Yen Zhu's level. You've hidden your abilities well. It's a pity." Noah smiled calmly at first, then slowly withdrew his smile. "If that's all you've got, I'd like to see how you're going to drag me onto the battlefield." After saying that, Noah swung his hand that was holding the sword. While drawing an arc of light, he slowly sheathed his sword back into the scabbard that he had been holding tightly in his left hand all this while. He then lifted the cloth bag that contained the scabbard and put away the knight's sword that had been sheathed back into the scabbard. Seeing Noah put away his weapon, not only the spectators, but even Ryutaro couldn't help but be stunned. "What's the meaning of this?" Noah didn't answer. Instead, he tossed the side pouch in the direction of Fairy Tale, and it was caught by Tina. This time, Ryutaro understood. Noah was planning to fight him barehanded. In that instant, Ryutaro couldn't help but feel a little angry at being looked down upon. Although Rentaro was also fighting barehanded, his right hand and right leg, which were made by chakra, were much tougher than normal weapons. Strictly speaking, they weren't even considered hands. In addition, if Rentaro were to fire the ammo cartridge hidden in his prosthetic limb, his attack power would increase by several folds. Since he could even penetrate a stage 4 protozoan in one hit, it would be a dead end if he were to face it with a pure human body. At that moment, Ryuteru revealed a somewhat stubborn smile. "I won't go easy on you." Hearing this, Noah still didn't say a word. He only extended his hand and waved at Ryutaro. Ryutaro's mind heated up, and he crouched down. Then, like a spring that had been released, he violently charged at Noah. He didn't hold back at all, and his heavy fist heavily smashed into Noah's chest. Noah's body immediately trembled, and his body appeared a dozen meters away amidst the faint sound of something breaking through the air. However, an extremely blurry afterimage remained where he was. Bang! Ryataro's fist heavily penetrated Noah's afterimage and scattered it. Immediately after, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard again. Noah's figure suddenly appeared beside Ryataro like a ghost. His fist, which was covered in pitch-black rainwater, carried a sharp gust of wind and a fierce force as it mercilessly smashed into Ryataro's head. At this moment, Noah's terrifying speed caused Ryataro's pupils to shrink, and his prosthetic eye began to spin wildly. The prosthetic eye that was inserted into Ryataro's left eye was a high-performance computer wrapped in a graphite transistor specification nanocore processor with a superalloy shell. In addition to various sensors, the prosthetic eye was also equipped with a multiplication function that could increase the brain's thinking speed by thousands of times. Therefore, in Ryataro's eyes, the flow of time was extremely slow. Even the movements of the cursed child were similar to slow motion in Ryataro's eyes. It was precisely under such circumstances that Ryataro was able to keep up with Noah's speed, agility, and movements that far exceeded that of a human. He also relied on his extremely high attack power to contend with Noah. However, now, Noah's speed was so much faster than before that Ryataro, who had a special prosthetic eye, almost couldn't react in time. Almost like a conditioned reflex, Ryataro tilted his numb head back. The fist, which carried a sharp gust of wind, immediately swung past Ryataro's face, causing him to feel a burning pain on his face. Unfortunately, before Ryataro could rejoice, Noah, who had flashed to his side, suddenly twisted his elbow and smashed it down. A sharp gust of wind formed at the tip of his elbow, and the ear-piercing sound caused Ryataro's eardrums to sting. Ryataro's expression changed. He hurriedly clenched his fist and threw an uppercut with his metal prosthetic arm, which heavily collided with Noah's elbow. Bang! As the ripples of the force spread out, the faint sound of bones rubbing against each other could be heard. When the metal fist made of super alloy collided with Noah's elbow, Ryataro, who thought that Noah's arm, which was made of ordinary flesh and blood, should have been fractured, felt the powerful force contained in the fist in the next second. His face turned slightly pale, and under the powerful force, his body was directly smashed to the ground. Bang! With Ryataro's body as the center, cracks spread out from where he landed. Humph! Ryataro immediately let out a muffled groan. An unbearable pain came from his back, which was smashed to the ground, causing Ryataro's mind to go blank for a moment. Whoosh! At this time, Noah did not stop for a moment. He bent his toes slightly and kicked Ryataro's head, who was lying on the ground. From the looks of it, if Ryataro was kicked, he would probably pass out on the spot. The strong wind that came straight at his head made Ryataro's brain work in time. With a whoosh sound, cold sweat broke out all over his body. Ryataro had no time to think about how embarrassed he was, nor did he have time to think about how Noah was able to knock him, who had a super alloy prosthetic arm, to the ground in a head-on collision. Instead, he rolled on the ground and dodged Noah's dangerous kick. Before Ryataro could get up, the familiar sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Then, Noah, who was like a ghost, appeared in front of Ryataro again. His speed was even more terrifying than before. Hiya! After realizing that he could not shake off Noah, Ryataro's body suddenly tensed up. He shouted loudly, clenched his fist, and swung it at Noah, who appeared in front of him. Bang! A cartridge was fired, and the empty golden cartridge was thrown high into the air. Chapter 167. Bang! 2 golden cartridges were hurled into the air by the sound of the cartridge being fired. One was thrown from Rentaro's foot. The other was thrown from Rentaro's foot. Whoosh! An active firing pin that was suspected to be hidden inside Rentaro's nerves hit the bottom of the cartridge at his feet and discharged the cartridge. The movable thrusters at Rentaro's feet immediately spurted out sparks. Together with an acceleration that could blow people away, Rentaro's entire body was propelled forward. Under the effect of the thrusters on his foot, not only did Rentaro's body flip over from the rolling state, but he also charged toward Noah instead of retreating. Immediately after, the Mega Punch, which had also fired its cartridge and obtained a push force, erupted with an extremely sharp sonic boom. It seemed to have stripped the air in front of it as it swung straight in Noah's direction. The pitch-black fist enlarged in his pitch-black pupils. The corner of Noah's mouth lifted, and he did not flinch at all. In the face of Rentaro's extremely terrifying attack, he did not hesitate at all. His palm clenched into a fist, and under the gaze of Rentaro's widened eyes, he smashed it heavily toward the incoming fist. Bang! An ordinary fist and a pitch-black heavy metal fist collided heavily together. The loud explosion was like a clap of thunder, spreading out and reverberating in the air. A powerful shockwave rapidly spread out from the point of contact between the two fists. The hard ground immediately exploded as if it had been bombarded by artillery fire. Wah! The surrounding crowd let out cries of alarm. While they were fleeing in a sorry state, they were also enduring the impact of the wind. For a moment, they were in a panic. The impact of the collision naturally did not affect Noah and Rentaro at all. Ha! Noah's arm that had punched out slightly bent, then straightened up again. Under the push of Noah, he punched out with all his might. Ryutaru's face paled. The violent force from Chao Kei's fist passed through his entire artificial arm and affected Ryutaru's body, causing his entire body to become numb. His shoulders trembled rapidly, and his pitch-black artificial leg made a loud stomping sound as he retreated. Every time his foot landed, it would leave a deep footprint on the ground. Only after retreating a dozen steps did he manage to stop himself from retreating and come to a halt. The second time. Undoubtedly, Rentaro's opponent's fist was only made of flesh and blood. However, for the second time, Rentaro, who had the super punch and the cartridge, was repelled by Rentaro's punch. The only emotion left in Rentaro's heart was shock. Chi! At this moment, Noah displayed a ghostly speed once again. He clenched his fist tightly and fiercely smashed it toward Rentaro. Ryutaru was taken aback. He could only raise his right hand to block in front of him. Clang! Noah's fist heavily smashed into Rentaro's super punch, causing an unbelievable sound that sounded like steel clashing against steel. Rentaro was once again pushed back. He only managed to stabilize himself after taking 2 steps back. However, Noah also took a step forward and appeared in front of Rentaro again. He clenched his fist and pulled it back to his lower abdomen. In an instant, he threw out punch after punch. Clang! 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 In an instant, the extremely inconceivable sound of steel clashing against steel resounded one after another like rhythmic syllables. Even in the entire space, it was clearly audible. Under Noah's fierce punches, Rentaro was forced to retreat step by step. He could only raise his super punch to block Noah's heavy blows. He kept groaning, and his face became paler and paler. Witnessing Noah chasing after Rentaro like a ferocious beast, with every punch that he threw out causing a loud sound to ring out, and every step that Rentaro took back caused the ground to be smashed into pieces, everyone present was speechless. Gulp, someone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Are they human? No one knew who made such a trembling voice. Everyone could only watch this scene in a daze, with different expressions on their faces. All the members of Fairy Tale raised their heads and puffed out their chests. Some of them had smiles on their faces and looked proud. Some of them looked in the direction of the auxiliary police force with sneers on their faces, as if they had just vented their frustrations. The people of the auxiliary police force looked at each other, speechless for a moment. Only then did they realize what kind of person they were trying to find trouble with. They all felt lucky that they didn't start a fight with Fairy Tale directly. Even Mayor Nagamasa showed a remorseful expression for a moment. If Mayor Nagamasa had known that Noah had such a level of combat power from the beginning, he definitely wouldn't have acted rashly. If he had known that Rentaro had such power in advance, he could have made arrangements in advance and made other plans. Only Yen Zhu was watching the intense battle between Noah and Rentaro. He secretly broke out in cold sweat for both sides. After all, Noah was equivalent to Yenju's family and savior, while Rentaro was Yenju's partner. No matter which side it was, Yenju didn't want to see them get hurt. Clang 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 clang. In the arena, Noah continued to swing his arms that were so heavy that they did not seem human. He landed blow after blow on Ryuteru's righteous hand. When he saw Ryuteru's face turn paler and paler due to the increasingly heavy impact, he narrowed his eyes and abruptly moved to the side of Ryuteru. Whoosh! In the next moment, Noah turned sideways, spun around, and kicked Rentaro's hand. Clang! Rentaro was caught off guard and was directly sent flying by the kick, which was much heavier than a punch. His body was like a kite with a broken string, bouncing backward for more than 10 meters before he stabilized himself and landed on the ground with his foot. Bang! However, almost at the same time Rentaro landed on the ground, a foot kicked Rentaro's other foot, causing him to cry out in pain and kneel on the ground on one knee. Ugh! Rentaro squeezed out a muffled groan from his throat. Gritting his teeth, he was about to push himself up when his vision suddenly darkened, and a familiar figure appeared. He subconsciously raised his head and looked in front of him. After a while, Rentaro saw Noah's unusually calm face looking down at him from above. The scene of Rentaro kneeling on one knee in front of Noah was presented to everyone in the field. Looking at it this way, everyone could tell who had won and who had lost. That's it, Noah said regretfully as he looked down at Rentaro, who was looking up at him. It seems that Rentaro, you don't have the ability to drag me to the battlefield. Rentaro's expression hardened. Just as he was about to stand up, a black revolver with a large caliber was placed in front of him, and the muzzle was pointed at his forehead. You have no chance of winning, Rentaro. Even if you're the product of the new human creation project, the outcome has already been determined. Noah's tone was a little indifferent. If you want to continue, I won't hold back anymore. Rentaro's expression suddenly changed drastically. After a while, it turned into a strong sense of unwillingness. Are you still holding back? Noah didn't respond. Instead, he put away his gun, turned around, and walked toward Fairy Tale. Everyone around him lowered their heads and remained silent. Seeing this, Rentaro couldn't take it anymore and shouted. Are you really not going to do anything? Noah. Noah didn't even turn his head as he continued to walk toward Fairy Tale. All the members of Fairy Tale obediently followed him. Damn it. Rentaro punched the ground with all his might. Rentaro. Yenju couldn't bear to see Rentaro like this and turned her head away. At this moment, President Noah. Chapter 168. President Noah. Following this voice, everyone present, whether it was the promoter or the initiator, whether it was the plundered generation or the cursed child, all widened their eyes in shock. Noah suddenly stopped in his tracks. Together with all the members of Fairy Tale, he froze on the spot. Basically, as long as you were a resident of Tokyo, you would recognize this voice. Even if you didn't hear it with your own ears, this voice has been heard countless times on TV. Immediately, everyone, including Noah, raised their heads and looked towards the source of the voice. Over there, a group of people were standing on a small hill, facing the people on this side. Among these people, there were old, young, men, and women. There were about 100 to 1,000 people. Even if they were scattered, they still filled up the top of the hill. They didn't bring umbrellas, nor did they bring any tools to shelter themselves from the rain. Just like that, they exposed themselves to the pitch-black rain, allowing the black raindrops to hit their bodies. A pair of bright, spirited eyes filled with hope and anticipation met this side, entering into the eyes of the crowd. At the front of these people, the Holy Son of Heaven stood at the head of the table, also exposing himself to the dark rain. His white body seemed to emit light, creating a sharp contrast with the dark rain around him, making it impossible for people to forget his figure at this moment. Lord Holy Son of Heaven. Everyone present let out a cry of surprise. When they saw the people standing behind the Holy Son of Heaven, they were stunned speechless. Lord Holy Son of Heaven. Yenju, Hina, Xiaoshi, and the others all said with a blank expression. Lord Holy Son of Heaven. My hall leader, who lost a leg, stood up with the help of Zhao Xia and said with some excitement. Why would Lord Holy Son of Heaven appear here like this? Please quickly take shelter from the rain. It seems that my hall leader was very surprised by the Holy Son of Heaven's action of standing in the dark rain. However, the one who responded to my hall leader's words was not the Holy Son of Heaven, but a beautiful figure who walked out from the crowd and came to the Holy Son of Heaven's side. I called Lord Holy Son of Heaven here. Looking at the beautiful figure standing next to the Holy Son of Heaven, Rentaro also showed a shocked expression. Miss Mugging? That is Mugging. Seeing Xingtianzi and Mu Gung standing on the small hill with a group of people, their gazes converging in this direction, or more accurately, converging on him, Noah frowned. What are you all doing? President Noah. The Holy Son of Heaven clasped his hands together in prayer and placed them in front of his chest, but his eyes were fixed on Noah. The people here all came with me willingly. Is that so? Noah's brows still did not relax in the slightest. Bearing the hopeful and expectant gazes of those people, he spoke in a deep voice. What? Noah. Mugging took a step forward and shouted at Noah. Almost all of the people here are from the plundered generation, they are all residents of Tokyo. President Noah. The Holy Son of Heaven also raised his voice, bent his upper body forward, and shouted at Noah. They all have something to say to you, please listen to their voices. The audience was dead silent. Noah just raised his head and looked at the direction of the hill, his eyes slightly stirred up a circle of ripples. And under Noah's gaze, the men and women, old and young all looked at each other, stepped forward, bent their body, and bowed deeply to Noah. President Noah. Please save us. Save the entire Tokyo area. Such a sentence resounded loudly in the air and drilled into the ears of everyone present. All of the members of Fairy Tale were stunned. The police auxiliary force led by the head of the police department all had their mouths wide open, their faces were full of disbelief. Rentaro, Yenju, Hina, Xiaoshi, and the others were all speechless, showing a dazed expression. Noah's heart slightly trembled, his fists suddenly clenched. What's going on? What's going on? Is this a call for help from the plundered generation? Is this a call for help from the residents of Tokyo? Didn't they want Fairy Tale to disappear? Didn't they want all the cursed children to die? Didn't they not need other people's help? Didn't they not trust the ability of the police? In that case, what were they doing now? This is a request from the residents of Tokyo. Xingtianzi was still praying with his hands clasped in front of his chest, like a saint guarding Noah, and closed his eyes. President Noah, I know that many people in the Tokyo area are rejecting the cursed child, and many of them are rejecting the fairy tale. When their lives are in danger, they even don't hesitate to vent their inner fear on the fairy tale, which has completely disappointed you in the Tokyo area. But, please believe in us, believe in the entire Tokyo area. Xingtianzi raised his praying hand and pressed it against his forehead, his tone was sincere and pleading. This world is full of contradictions. The Tokyo area is the same. Some people reject you, but some people like you from the bottom of their hearts. Some people show their ugly and dark side everywhere, but there are also people who have always believed that the human heart is beautiful and kind in the end. The people here, even if they are about to face the invasion of the protogut animals, still have expectations for you. Even in this world full of despair, there is always hope in their hearts. Xingtianzi opened his eyes and stared at Noah with strong emotions. This is the only hope left in this world, and also the only beauty left in humanity. So, President Noah, I beg you. Not in the name of justice. Not in the name of righteousness. Not for the country. Not for the Tokyo area. Please protect the only hope left in this world. After saying that, Elysian Son of Heaven heavily bent his body and gave Noah the most respectful bow he had ever given him. This bow was not a request to Noah as Xingtianzi, but as an ordinary girl who also held hope in her heart and longed for peace, making a request to Noah. On the side, Mugino silently bent down and bowed. Rentaro stood up with Yen Zhu's help and bowed as well. Our police chief and Asahi looked at each other and slowly bowed. The policemen of the police auxiliary force all looked at each other for a while, then showed a firm expression and bowed to Noah. President Noah. Behind Shingtianzi and Mugino, the Tokyo area residents who still maintained a bowing posture once again let out a loud and clear voice. Please save us. All of the members of Fairy Tale were dumbfounded on the spot, unable to utter a single word. Xia Shi and Hina turned their heads at the same time, and cast their eyes on Noah. Noah stared blankly at the people in front of him, looking at the determined expression on their faces and the light of hope in their eyes. His heart trembled, and trembled again. Hope. So, in this world, there is still hope. Buzz. At this time, in front of Noah, a gorgeous halo suddenly bloomed, like a halo enveloping the space in front of Noah. This gorgeous halo, no one present could see it. Noah was the only one who stared at the halo in front of him. An uncontrollable ripple appeared in his dark eyes. In the halo that no one could see, a dreamlike object was suspended there. It was a piece of feather. A piece of a feather that seemed to have been cut in half, with less than half remaining, was suspended in the crystal-like crystal ball, emitting a white halo. That was the most fundamental reason why Noah came to this world after searching for more than a year in this world. World fragment. The world fragment that couldn't be found for a long time, now, in this world's last remaining hope, appeared in front of Noah. Chapter 169. Walala. The dark rain continued, mercilessly hitting the ground of the entire Tokyo area. In the cold air, outside the area that belonged to the Fairy Tale, groups of people stood in different directions, but they all bowed in the same direction and did not get up for a long time. In the position where everyone was bowing, all the members of Fairy Tale were silent, their gazes converged on Noah's body, not opening their mouths to say a word. Noah, on the other hand, was looking in front of him, looking at a piece of broken feather suspended in a white halo and a crystal ball like crystal that outsiders couldn't see. His heart couldn't calm down for a long time. The world fragments that were lost in different worlds existed in different forms. From the beginning, Noah knew that if he wanted to find the world fragments, it wouldn't be an easy task. Because, some of them only needed to find the location of their existence to appear in front of Noah, some of them existed in an unknown form, some were just scattered in a certain place, some were hidden in a certain object, some needed to be found, and some needed to meet certain conditions to appear. Now, the world fragments that existed in this world, after meeting certain conditions, automatically appeared in front of Noah. Until this moment, Noah finally understood why he couldn't find the world fragments, why there was no news about the world fragments, and why this world didn't even give Noah any hints. It turned out that this world fragment had existed in his side from the beginning. But it needed to meet the conditions to appear. That was, in this world full of despair everywhere, showing hope. Noah's hand involuntarily reached in front of him, holding up the world fragment that no one could see in front of him, whispering a voice that no one could hear. Do you also think that I should protect the little hope left in this world? The world fragment slightly trembled, as if it was whispering something to Noah, making Noah's heart melt. In this 1 year in this world, Noah was used to the darkness, used to the ugliness of human nature, used to despair, and used to the bad nature of human beings. Because of this, Noah also missed his original world very much, but he didn't know when this world started to freeze his heart. Now, the grudge in Noah's heart finally completely dissipated. Because, Noah knew. In this world, beautiful things still existed. Still, there was hope. Rumble. Suddenly, the ground shook as if it was turned upside down. What's going on? At the scene, everyone was shocked, looking up and looking into the distance. Following that, the scene that entered everyone's eyes caused almost everyone to reveal a look of horror. Rumble. On the other side far away, at a place that seemed to be the other end of the horizon, billowing smoke and dust filled the air, rising high into the sky like burning flames. Roar. Roar. Woo. Amidst the billowing smoke and dust, large and small, grotesquely shaped, and ferocious xenomorphs rushed out like a school of fish. With roars and tremors on the ground, they crossed the national border, crossed the plains, and rushed toward the interior of the Tokyo area. After a day, the army of protogut animals that retreated for a short time finally launched another attack on the Tokyo area. In the center of the protogut animals swarming over like ants, a huge exotic beast walked with heavy footsteps, lifting an extremely long-mouthed crocodile that was more than half its body. It raised its head and let out a roar. Woo 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 woo. The long and drawn-out roar finally woke everyone up from their shock as they reacted. Quick! Rentaro was the first to yell. Quickly organize the battle line. Men! My hall master Zhang Zheng roared. Quickly protect Lord Elysium and leave this place. On a small hill, Elysium was protected by Mugging, who was holding a katana tightly behind him. Together with the residents of the Tokyo area, they were a little panicked. Including Elysium, there were at least 1,000 ordinary people here. If the police were accidentally involved in the battle between the protogut animals and the protogut animals, it would be a real disaster. Just as the police were about to organize the battle line and launch a resistance, while some of them covered the ordinary people led by Elysium and tried to evacuate, a figure suddenly walked out of the crowd, past everyone present, and walked forward. Looking up at the army of protogut animals that swarmed towards him like a school of fish, Noah's footsteps were clear and audible even in this chaotic space. As he walked forward step by step, he spoke word by word, his dark pupils flashing with a soul-stirring spirit. All of you, back off. Everyone was stunned. All of you back off. What does this mean? Ignoring everyone who was stunned on the spot, Noah was like a warrior who overestimated himself and wanted to challenge a scourge. Under everyone's gaze, he stopped and showed everyone his back. I'll believe in this world one more time. As if there was no endless deadly monster army in front of him, Noah's voice slowly sounded. Hope, don't let hope disappear from this world. Don't let me down. Leaving this sentence, Noah's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate space and swept across the protogut animals in front of him. In the next moment, a vast sea of magic surged out from Noah's body like raging waves. Ding! With a light sound, a bright brilliance shot up from the ground where Noah was standing. Like a light pillar, it stood beside Noah. Ding 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 ding. As if triggering a chain reaction, under the influence of the monstrous magic power, dazzling brilliance burst out from the ground around Noah and surrounded Noah's body as if they were protecting Noah. Ding! Immediately after, as if a bell had suddenly rung from the horizon, an extremely gorgeous geometric pattern expanded at the top of the brilliance that surrounded Noah. It emitted a dazzling brilliance as if it wanted to cover the entire sky. Upon a closer look, in the center of the geometric pattern, there was a pattern similar to the coat of arms on the back of Noah's hand. At that moment, it was as if a solemn movement was playing. Together with the dazzling brilliance, it filled the world. Noah, who was in the center of the dazzling brilliance, was like a god descending from the sky, exuding an astonishing majesty. This incomprehensible scene caused everyone present to fall into a daze as if they were in a daze. It was only then that Noah stretched out his hand and placed it in front of him as if he was hugging a sphere. The monstrous magic power poured into Noah's hands like a flood, turning into a dazzling ball of light that illuminated the entire world. No matter what kind of monsters you are, there's no room for you to appear here. Noah slowly raised his head and looked ahead with a sharp glint in his eyes. Disappear. As soon as his voice fell, Noah abruptly closed his hand that was holding the dazzling ball of light. The fairy law. Activate. As Noah closed his hand, the dazzling ball of light exploded and turned into a burst of sacred light. Hum. The sacred light soared as if it wanted to fill the entire world. It spread out like a tide and instantly shrouded the entire space. Holy light surged toward the charging army of primitive gut animals, completely enveloping them within. Woo 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 woo. All of a sudden, with Aldebaran in the lead, all of the protogut animals let out a mournful roar. Their bodies gradually turned white under the illumination of the holy radiance as if they had turned into stone statues. In the next second, they shattered into gravel and disappeared into the world. Looking at the protozoa being destroyed one by one under the suppression of the sacred light, the crowd was unable to recover from their shock for a long time. And this scene seemed to have become eternal, lasting for a long time. Chapter 170. 3 days later, the manufacturing of the monolith began. Now, from any corner of the Tokyo area, looking in the direction of Monolith 32, almost everyone could see the scene of a large number of helicopters and transport planes transporting huge square blocks of metal through specially reinforced hanging nets. The method of manufacturing the monolith was actually quite simple. Similar to the method of building the pyramids, the manufacturing of the monolith was first to build up pieces of metal, then use a large number of transport planes and helicopters to airlift them to the site, use a special adhesive stronger than the metal used to bond planes and spaceships to combine them, and finally pile them up to a height of 1,618 kilometers and a width of 1 kilometer. Now, the manufacturing of the monolith had just begun, and the height of the new monolith was not even 100 meters. In order to prevent the protozoa from taking advantage of the situation, presumably, the manufacturing of the monolith would be the most important matter in the entire Tokyo area. For the time being, people could see a large number of helicopters and transport planes at work. And during the time when the manufacturing of the monolith began, people who had left the Tokyo area with plane tickets began to come back one after another, and people who stayed in the underground bunker also came out. The once chaotic Tokyo area seemed to have returned to the past, and people were still smiling as usual, as if nothing had happened. However, some things, as long as they were not visible on the surface, it did not mean that nothing had changed. At least, during the time when Tokyo was facing a crisis, those who robbed, stole, hurt others, and even killed people for money were all brought to justice. Those who showed an ugly and unbearable side of humanity were also shunned by the people around them. It was estimated that for a period of time, they would have to live like the cursed child, like a rat crossing the street. At the same time, in the news, a report called The Third Great Kanto War was presented to the public in the form of a report. It was the cumulative damage of the Tokyo area caused by the continuous fighting with the Stage V protozoa, Scorpio, at the end of April 2031, and with the Stage 4 protozoa, Aldebaran, in mid-July of the same year. The details are as follows. The combat strength of the Tokyo Ground Self-Defense Force decreased by 83%. The combat strength of the Tokyo Maritime Self-Defense Force was reduced by 45%. The combat strength of the Tokyo Air Self-Defense Force was reduced by 95%. In short, even if the self-defense forces in the Tokyo area were not finished, they would be greatly damaged for a long time and would not be able to recover their former glory. On the contrary, it was another statistic of damage that shocked everyone. The number of police partners officially registered by the Tokyo Police Force decreased by 13%. This part of the damage came from the Third Great Battle of Kanto and the fifth constellation of Bai. That time in Scorpio constellation, other than the 20 to 30 teams that were killed by Leech Ingyin and Leech Benet Jr., the rest did not suffer any injuries. This time, due to the conflict between Fairy Tail and a portion of the residents in the Tokyo area, most of the police gave up on participating in the battle and joined Fairy Tail, which minimized the damage to the police. Therefore, the damage to the police was the least. Of course, if it wasn't for the fact that Captain Nakamura repelled the fifth constellation of Bai at the cost of one of his legs, the entire police auxiliary force would have been wiped out on the battlefield. Therefore, now that the self-defense forces were in a state of great damage, the Tokyo area would probably use the activity of the police as the theme for a long time. Finally, this report ended with the following sentence. It was said that the Tokyo area was the first in the world to avoid the fate of extinction after the monolith collapse disaster in the past 10 years. And the name of the person who saved the entire Tokyo area and made this unprecedented case was deeply engraved in the hearts of the residents of the entire Tokyo area. The president of Fairy Tail, Noah Doria. In the hall, Xia Shi was watching the TV in front of him with a tray in his hand. On the television, with Seiko leading the way, Rintaro, Yenju, Nagasaki, Morning Xia, and the rest of the police officers who had performed outstandingly in the Third Kanto War were giving a celebratory speech and being interviewed by the reporters. Even Mugang and Hina were among them. At this time, Seiko was apologizing to the guests and reporters present. It wasn't because Song Tianzi had done something wrong. Instead, it was because a certain hero who had saved the Tokyo region had skipped the celebration and wasn't present. Song Tianzi was representing this hero to apologize to everyone present. Seiko calmly answered one question after another while being interviewed by the reporters with a faint helpless look. Xia Shi turned his head and cast his gaze on the culprit who was sitting on the sofa reading a document. President, this celebration ceremony was held for you. You skipped it without saying a word. Is it really okay? What does it matter? Noah looked at the document in his hands seriously, but he seemed to be a little indifferent to Xia Shi's words. And it doesn't count as skipping it. I asked Hina to go in my place, right? But people in the Tokyo area want to see the hero who saved them, not a substitute. Xia Shi shook his head. If the president doesn't come, a lot of people will be disappointed. You're wrong. Noah glanced at Xia Shi and curled his lips. If I go, more people will be disappointed. At that time, in front of the entire Tokyo area, Noah made a declaration that he wouldn't participate in the war. At that time, many people didn't think they were wrong. Because these people didn't think that a small fairy tale could save the entire Tokyo area. Unfortunately, now, Noah saved the Tokyo area, which was equivalent to slapping those ugly people in the face and telling them who saved them. So, today, there should be a lot of people who are very unhappy with this celebration ceremony held for Noah. And even if Noah didn't come, these people's faces weren't very good. After all, just a moment ago, led by Seiko, Rintaro, Mugging, and other police representatives from the Tokyo area had collectively criticized the Tokyo area residents for spreading rumors and causing trouble. The Tokyo area residents who went to Fairy Tale to ask for Noah's help had also expressed extreme indignation during the reporter's interview. Even the police chief had righteously reprimanded them for what they had done. After today's celebration ceremony, it is believed that many Tokyo area residents who woke up from their hot-headed state will regret what they did, and those who didn't repent will be more jealous of Noah and the fairy tale. However, their jealousy will soon be completely used by Noah. It didn't take long for Noah, who was looking at the documents in his hand, to show a smile, but the smile was a little cold. Taking out his mobile phone, Noah dialed a number. After waiting for a while in the busy tone of the phone was picked up by the owner on the other end of the phone. Without waiting for the other party to speak, Noah spoke directly. The time is right. The plan we talked about before can now be carried out. Hearing this sentence, on the other end of the phone, a deliberately suppressed silence lasted for a while. After a while, a slightly happy and charming voice sounded and passed into Noah's ears. I understand. I will let my people get ready. We owe you a favor, little Noah. Noah put the phone to his ear and held the document in his hand. The smile on his face was unusually cold. Chapter 171. The next day, when the residents of the Tokyo area were still feeling the lingering fear of surviving a disaster, a document was suddenly leaked from various channels. The records in the document also began to spread like wildfire, spreading throughout the Tokyo area in just a day. And when this news was confirmed to be correct, the people of the entire Tokyo area were furious, causing the Tokyo area to once again become chaotic. It was a record of the information related to the number 32 monolith, which caused the attack of the Protozoa army in the past, causing the entire Tokyo area to fall into a crisis of extinction. Nowadays, in order to prevent corruption or binding of public projects, the public bidding system was adopted for public projects. However, in this way, the process would become relatively complicated. The construction of the monolith was a project that needed to be time-sensitive. Therefore, the construction of the monolith project was generally handed over to the construction contractor directly under the command of the Ministry of Transportation and Transport. In other words, in other projects, the embezzlement of the project's startup funds may be prevented because of measures to prevent corruption, but in the construction of the monolith project, it was impossible to completely eliminate this possibility. This document that spread like wildfire recorded that a part of the construction funds of the number 32 monolith was misappropriated for no reason, and became the private property of the person in charge of the construction of the number 32 monolith. And at that time, the person in charge of the construction of the number 32 monolith was the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Transportation and Transport of the Tokyo area, Tendo Mujino's elder brother of the same father, Tendo Kazuhiko. Once this piece of evidence was leaked, everyone who received the news immediately understood what was going on. They understood why the stage 4 protozoa, Aldebaran, could attach to the monolith, and the reason why the number 32 monolith collapsed after injecting lithium corrosive liquid into the monolith. All of this was because Tian Tong and light had mixed in other cheap materials during the construction of the monolith, thus embezzling a portion of the construction funds for the construction of monolith number 32. In other words, the reason number 32 monolith was able to be injected with the nightmare corrosive fluid by the stage 4 Aldebaran was entirely because there was a problem with the monolith itself. Tendo and Hikaru were the fuse that ignited the Third Great Kanto War, the culprits that plunged the entire Tokyo region into crisis. Suddenly, the residents of the Tokyo area were furious and began to parade or demonstrate in groups, making the entire Tokyo area restless. This was especially true for those who had angered Noah in front of the holy residents due to the incident in the Tokyo area. As a result, they were saved by Noah in the end and lost all their face. They were even more shocked and angry. It turned out that the culprits who exposed their true colors and made them lose face, being questioned in person, and being isolated by the people around them, were Tendo and Hikaru. Understanding this, these people were all furious and started to make a ruckus. They took the lead to parade or demonstrate in the streets, turning the grievances of the past few days into indignation, and strongly demanded the Tokyo area to severely punish Tendo and Hikaru. At this time, when everyone in the Tokyo area was angry, another document was released. The Tendo clan was a famous clan that produced many financial and political leaders. This was something that everyone knew. In the process of the Tendo clan's development, the people of the Tendo clan were inevitably tainted with several dirty things. For example, Tendo and Hikaru, there were many people who engaged in corruption. This document was the criminal evidence of the Tendo clan's corruption. Originally, the people mentioned in this criminal evidence were all insignificant people in the Tendo clan. Even if the matter was exposed, the Tendo clan could push them out and completely stay out of it. There wouldn't be any damage. However, when this criminal evidence was released at this time, the situation was completely different. The residents of the Tokyo area, who were in a mess because of various reasons, were furious. Under the influence of various emotions, they were hot-headed and pointed the spearhead at the entire Tendo clan. As a result, all the posts that the Tendo clan members were responsible for were blindly complained and reported by the residents of Tokyo, causing all the Tendo clan members to be thoroughly investigated. With this investigation, all kinds of dirty things were exposed. Many of the Tendo clan's big shots were either betrayed by their partners who had always been in cahoots with them in order to protect themselves, or they had to temporarily leave their posts to avoid the limelight because of the residents of the Tokyo area. As a result, it naturally caused the entire Tokyo area to be in chaos. After all, many posts in the Tokyo area were indispensable for the Tendo clan members. If the Tendo clan were to be punished, the Tokyo area would definitely not be able to survive. It was also because of this that the Holy Son of Heaven couldn't do anything to the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister and could only let him do whatever he wanted. The Tendo clan also relied on this and didn't pay much attention to this incident. They didn't expect that the real disaster had completely fallen on the Tendo clan. Almost at the same time when the Tendo clan's big shots left their posts for various reasons, as if it was arranged in advance, everyone's posts were replaced by others the next day. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. This time, the Tendo clan members were completely dumbfounded. Whether guilty or innocent, all the posts of the Tendo clan members were replaced by others. Even those who were fine after the incident were destined not to return to their original posts. Even the position of the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister's assistant was revoked because of public opinion. That was to say, everyone in the Tendo clan was forced to be laid off. The Tendo clan was completely finished. The Tendo clan was a first-class mansion located in the first district of the Tokyo area. The huge Western-style building was not so much a mansion, but more like a cottage in the countryside. Due to the invasion of Gastralia, the people of the country were already suffering from the land problem. But the Tendo clan's main gate was more than 100 meters away from the entrance of the mansion. The structure of the mansion was under the care of a gardener. The trees in the courtyard were trimmed very neatly, forming a complete left and right symmetry. The fountain that imitated the shape of a bathing angel was also inlaid with shell-like decorations everywhere. With the stupefied Mugging and Rentaro, Noah walked into the Tendo clan's mansion, pushed open the door of a room, and walked in. This was a pure Japanese-style room. In the center of the room, the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister sat there with his eyes closed. As usual, he was full of majesty. However, they didn't know if it was a psychological effect, but Mugging and Rentaro felt that today, the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister seemed to have a different temperament. It was like the sorrowful aura of a hero past his prime. As if he had been waiting for Noah's group to arrive, the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister slowly opened his eyes and stared at Noah with a sharp gaze. Noah calmly walked in and came in front of the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister. However, he didn't sit down, but stood in front of the Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister, looking down at him and indifferently said, "Your Excellency Tendo, how have you been?" The Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister completely ignored Noah's meaningless greetings. He stared at Noah's face and spoke with an old and hoarse voice. "How did you do it?" "Oh." Noah pretended to be surprised and smiled. "Your Excellency Tendo is only asking me how to get the evidence of the Tendo clan's corruption. There are many ways to get the evidence of those nobodies. We have never spent the effort to clean up their deeds." The Tendo Chrysanthemum coldly said. "If it wasn't for you leaking the evidence of Kazuhito's crimes, even if you released the evidence, it wouldn't have affected us. No, in fact, its influence is that great." Noah mockingly said. "Your Excellency Tendo, haven't you already understood its influence?" The Tendo Chrysanthemum Prime Minister's expression sank. Chapter 172. Even if it was a small thing, it could play an unexpected role when used reasonably in necessary situations. Everyone understood the meaning of this sentence, and everyone had even heard of it before, let alone someone like the celestial child Chrysanthemum Prime who had lived for who knew how many years. But now, Tentong Chrysanthemum truly realized the true meaning of this sentence. Originally, it was just an insignificant piece of evidence to the Tentong family, but it attracted the blind targeting of the angry residents of the Tokyo area, causing the Tentong family to fall into a crisis. When the celestial child Chrysanthemum Prime Minister was in trouble, he already knew who was the one responsible for the two pieces of evidence that suddenly appeared in various channels and were leaked out. Who else could it be except for Noah? Tentong Chrysanthemum did not expect that Noah's means were so brilliant. First, he used the culprit who caused the despair of the entire Tokyo area, the criminal evidence of Tentong and Hikaru, to arouse the grievance and anger in the hearts of the residents of the Tokyo area. Then, he leaked the criminal evidence of the insignificant people of the Tentong family in this situation, causing the hot-headed residents of the Tokyo area to target the entire Tentong family. In the end, the entire Tentong family was forced to step down one by one in the face of the storm. This was not a big deal. After all, as long as the Tentong family pushed out the culprit, Tentong and Hikaru, who caused the anger of the residents of the Tokyo area, the residents of the Tokyo area would calm down. At that time, the people of the Tentong family could still return to their posts. However, as if it was arranged in advance, as soon as the people of the Tentong family temporarily left their posts, all their posts were replaced by others. Even Tentong Chrysanthemum, an assistant official, was dismissed because of public opinion and fell into a situation where he had nothing. It was not until this moment that Tentong Chrysanthemum understood that the Tentong family had completely lost everything they had in the past. Including him, Tentong Chrysanthemum himself. "Did you arrange those people?" Tentong Chrysanthemum looked at Noah with cold eyes, but his fists were clenched tightly. "Where did you find so many people who have the ability to replace my Tentong family? Not everyone would be able to climb up the ranks smoothly." The layoff of the Tiantong family this time provided a good opportunity for someone to be promoted. But if one wanted to stand firmly in this position, how could one do it without a certain ability? Empyrean Chrysanthemum didn't understand where Noah found so many capable people. In response, Noah glanced at Chrysanthemum Tentong and extended his hand to the side. Rentaro handed a document to Noah with a complicated expression. You haven't seen the list of those who replaced your celestial Tong family, right? Noah threw the document in his hand in front of the celestial Tong chrysanthemum minister. I believe that you should be very familiar with the names of these people. Chrysanthemum silently picked up the document and flipped through it. After a while, his eyes suddenly widened. Seema, that's right. Noah suddenly smiled. These people who have replaced you are your old rivals, the Seema clan's faction. Noah had already set his mind on the Seema clan when he decided to overthrow the Celestial Tong family. The Celestial Tong family and the Seema clan were two very similar existences. The Celestial Tong family occupied a great position in the political world and had extraordinary influence. On the other hand, the Seema family occupied a place in the business world. They relied on weapons to become rich and powerful. One was in politics, the other was in business. Both sides actually coveted each other's achievements in this field, more or less wanted to swallow a bite. Therefore, the Celestial Tong family and the Seema clan had various disputes for various reasons. This was also one of the reasons why Mu Gung and Mu Ji knew each other and were like fire and water. And it just so happened that Noah met the eldest daughter of the Seema clan at a very suitable time, Seema Mu Ji herself. After the bullet incident, Mu Ji found Noah. Noah privately negotiated with Mu Ji, hoping that Mu Ji could become a necessary force when he overthrew the Celestial Tong family. It was also because of this that Mu Ji helped Noah find evidence of the Celestial Tong family's crimes. This time, it was also because of Mu Ji's secret operation that the Celestial Tong Wagwang and the Celestial Tong family's matters were spread to the whole Dongjing area in just one day, causing such a movement. In the end, the people of the Seema clan took this opportunity to replace the Celestial Tong family's position in the political world, which caused the Celestial Tong family to be forced to step down collectively. The operations in the Dongjing area could still be carried out in an orderly manner, reducing the impact of the Celestial Tong family on the Dongjing area to a freezing point. It turned out to be like this. It turned out to be like this. Chrysanthemum's hand holding the list of the people of the Seema clan couldn't help but tremble as he whispered. No wonder even the evidence of Wagwang's crimes can be obtained. There were still many ways to obtain the evidence of the crimes of the insignificant people of the Celestial Tong family, but Celestial Tong Wagwang was the grandson of Chrysanthemum's prime minister, a direct descendant of the Celestial Tong family. The traces of his secret deeds had long been deliberately eliminated by the Celestial Tong family. Except for the Celestial Tong family's own data vault. The Celestial Tong family secretly coveted the Seema clan's position in the business world, and the Seema clan also coveted the Celestial Tong family's position in the political world. Naturally, both sides had special spies mixed into their respective internal departments. In order to get the evidence of Celestial Tong Wagwang's crimes, the Seema clan even mobilized the people who had been lurking in the Celestial Tong family. With the help of Mugging, they finally succeeded. Noah said faintly as if he had heard the voice of Chrysanthemum's prime minister. As the former daughter of the Celestial Tong family, no one is more familiar with the situation of the Celestial Tong family than Mugging. She even knows the location of the Celestial Tong family's data vault and how to enter it. Chrysanthemum's prime minister immediately shot his emotional gaze to Mugging, then suddenly realized something. No. Even if you can get the evidence of Wagwang's crimes and trigger a riot in the Tokyo area, it's impossible for the people in the Celestial Tong family to be replaced in such a short time when they leave their post. Speaking until here, Chrysanthemum's prime minister was suddenly stunned. Unless it's a recommendation from someone who has the ability to specially arrange for these people to be promoted instantly without the need for formalities and effort. Noah looked at Chrysanthemum's prime minister with sympathy. That's something that only someone with more influence and authority than you, the Celestial Tong family's patriarch and the Holy Son of Heaven's prime minister, can do. Hearing until here, the list in Chrysanthemum's prime minister's hand fell to the ground. After being stunned for a while, he seemed to have aged a lot all of a sudden. He finally bent his straight back and sighed. So that's how it is. Even the Holy Son of Heaven is involved in the operation of this matter? For that peace-loving princess, Chrysanthemum's prime minister's prime minister without hesitation, and your existence as the cradle of the corrupt Celestial Tong family, is an indispensable force to protect the Tokyo area, but also an invisible threat that can make the Tokyo area cease to exist. Noah turned around, his voice drilled into Chrysanthemum's ears. I believe that the Celestial Tong family, who has lost their status, will soon send specialized investigators to conduct a thorough investigation here. With mugging here, the Celestial Tong family's data vault won't be able to stop anyone. All the dirty things that the Celestial Tong family has done will be exposed to everyone's eyes. The Celestial Tong family is completely finished. Leaving this sentence, Noah lifted his feet and walked out of the door without looking back. Ryotaro looked at the aged Chrysanthemum's prime minister with a complicated expression, then finally sighed, followed behind Noah, and left the scene. Only Mugging raised his slightly gloomy face, looked at Chrysanthemum's prime minister, then slowly raised his hand holding the long sword, and put it on the long sword. Chrysanthemum's prime minister also raised his head, his cloudy eyes met Mugging's face. Are you going to kill me? Your crime is enough to be sentenced to death. Mugging said in a low voice. Noah has already negotiated with the Holy Son of Heaven. I will be the one to execute your death sentence. Is that so? Chrysanthemum's prime minister said sarcastically. I didn't expect that in the end, you, a vengeful ghost who crawled back from hell, would actually succeed in your revenge. That's why I am very grateful to the person who helped me achieve my goal. Mugging slowly pulled out his sword, his eyes flashed with deadly hatred and murderous intent. It's over. Chrysanthemum's prime minister. After saying that, the cold light of the sword flashed in the dark room. Poochie. Red blood flew into the air, dyeing the entire ground red. Chapter 173. Xiaoshi and Hina, who had prepared refreshments in the kitchen, carried 2 trays of tea to the main hall. Rentaro-san. Xiaoshi walked up to Rentaro and raised the tray in his hand. Please have some tea. Thank you. A slightly insincere smile appeared on Rentaro's face. He reached out and took the tea from Xiaoshi's tray. Hina walked up to Mugging and glanced at her worriedly. Then, she raised the tray of tea in front of Mugging. Miss Mugging, please have some tea too. Emicham. Mugging nodded gently. She held the tea in her hand but didn't seem to want to drink it all. Her head was lowered, and an extremely weak expression appeared on her delicate face. Noah, who was sitting in front of Mugging and Ryotaro, silently observed them for a while. Then, he raised his teacup and looked at the swirling tea in it. He suddenly said, "Let's start." Are you still thinking about the Tentong family? As soon as he said this, Mugging and Rentaro's expressions changed. One was at a loss, while the other was at a loss. Noah, who was quite familiar with Mugging and Rentaro, easily guessed the reason for their reaction. Rentaro was probably feeling uncomfortable because the Tentong family that adopted him was destroyed just like that. His adoptive father was also sentenced to death right in front of him. After all, when Mugging's parents were killed by the Tentong family, Rentaro also left the Tentong family with Mugging. However, he didn't hate the Tentong family like Mugging did. It was impossible to say that Rentaro didn't have the slightest attachment to the Tentong family. That was why Rentaro's emotions were so tangled. He probably wouldn't be able to get over it for a while. As for Mugging, it was simple. After killing the Celestial Tong's Chrysanthemum, Mugung left without a word. No one knew where he went. When Mugung reappeared and came to Noah's house, Mugung was already in a daze. Noah, Xiaoshi, Hina, and Rentaro, who had returned with Noah, all discovered that not only was Mugging reeking of blood, but there was also blood seeping out of his scabbard. Shortly after that, TV news reports reported the death of Tentong family's Tentong Hyuga, Tentong Genji, Tentong Shimin, as well as the culprits who caused the entire Tokyo area to fall into a major crisis, Tentong and Hikari. Thinking about it, it was clear that these people were killed by Mugging himself, right? And these people, if nothing unexpected happened, were the masterminds behind the deaths of Mugging's parents. It seemed that Mugging had somehow found out about the murderers of his parents. After killing the Celestial Tong's Chrysanthemum, he rushed to various places without stopping to kill his enemies. Now, all of his enemies had been killed by his own hands, and the Tiantong family was finished. Mu Gung, who had buried all of the Tiantong family as the meaning of his life, knew what would be left after taking his revenge. Emptiness. Other than that, there was nothing else. Regarding this, Xia Shi, who was extremely smart compared to ordinary children, seemed to understand. Although Hina was not as smart as Xia Shi, her life as an assassin made her extremely sensitive in this regard. Therefore, the two left obediently after serving tea. In this regard, Noah pondered in his heart for a while, then took a deep breath and made a decision. Mugging, Rintaro. At that moment, Noah thought about what to say in his heart and said, "Can you listen to a somewhat willful request of mine?" Hearing this, Mugging and Rintaro were stunned at the same time. After looking at each other blankly, they sorted out their inner emotions and pulled themselves together a little. "What is it that requires you to speak in such a solemn manner?" Rintaro asked with some confusion. "You've helped us a lot. If there's anything you need my help with and I can do it, I'll definitely help you." "Go ahead." Mugging nodded concisely. "You've helped me take revenge. No matter what it is, I'll agree to it." "Don't be so sure." Noah shook his head and his expression became extremely serious. "After all, I want you to disband the Tentong Civilian Guard Company and join Fairy Tale." "Join Fairy Tale?" Mugging and Rintaro were both stunned. In front of the two, Noah first closed his eyes for a moment before suddenly opening them. A shocking light flashed across his eyes. "Mugging, Rintaro, I want to change this world." "Change the world?" Mugging and Ryutaru were completely stunned. Change the world? What did that mean? Intuition told Mugging and Rintaro that what Noah wanted to say next was definitely something very big, something so big that it could really change the world. As a result, Muggino and Rintaro reined in their emotions and became serious. "Actually, I've had this idea for a long time, but I've never thought of implementing it before because it's not something that can be done in a short period of time." Noah placed the tea in his hand on the table in front of him and met the gazes of Mugging and Rintaro. He sighed. "I believe you all know that I've always wanted to change the current situation of the cursed child, so that these children can truly live a happy life like ordinary children. However, this matter has cruelly told me that there are still many people who hate these children, and there are also countless people who reject these children." Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. Due to the fact that the Tokyo area is ruled by the Son of Heaven, who doesn't reject the cursed child, the children here have the best experience in the whole country and even the whole world. But even so, the situation in Tokyo is still like this. I really can't imagine what kind of life the children in other places are living without the protection of the fairy tale, and are not residents of the Tokyo area. Mugging and Rintaro were silent, they only nodded and agreed with Noah's idea. "So, when you say, change the world, you mean you want to change the situation of the cursed child being discriminated against all over the world?" Mugging's expression became stern. "You should know that this is not something that can be done easily, right?" On the side, Rintaro nodded again, but this time, Rintaro agreed with Mugging's idea. Basically, as long as it was a person who experienced the Protozoa War 10 years ago and survived until now, and kept that hellish memory, they all hated the cursed child. Because the cursed child's body had the blood of the monsters who took away their family and friends in the past 10 years. It wasn't impossible for these people to accept the existence of the cursed child, but it was unrealistic for the whole world to abandon hatred and discrimination and accept these children. Not to mention other factors, even if the two factors of hatred and discrimination were excluded, the most primitive human fear was a difficult problem to solve. The cursed child's body had the protozoa virus in it. Once the protozoa virus's invasion rate of the body exceeded 50%, these innocent and cute children would turn into real monsters. No one wanted to have a person who could turn into a man-eating monster at any time by their side. Even if it was a child. Therefore, the possibility of turning into a monster at any time meant that these children would not be able to integrate into the world of ordinary people. Unless Noah could come up with a solution to the possibility of these children turning into protozoa. Otherwise, this idea could only be said to be nonsense. Of course, Noah understood this problem, and showed a hesitant expression, but after a while, he slightly relaxed, looked at Mugeng and Rintaro, and said a shocking fact. Actually, in the fairy tale, there is already a way to completely suppress the protozoa virus in the cursed child's body, and to stop the invasion rate from increasing. What did you say? Even Mugeng and Rintaro couldn't help but lose their voice when they suddenly heard this news. Noah glanced at the two of them who were shocked. He stood up and said to the two of them, "You two, come with me." Chapter 174. Tap. 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 In the cold corridor, the sound of footsteps lingered in the air. It was only after a long time that it stopped and was replaced by new footsteps. Under Noah's lead, Mugino and Rentaro's expressions were tense. They followed Noah forward while quietly observing their surroundings. This was the underground area under the main building of Fairy Tale. Here, the surrounding walls are all made of metal that doesn't seem to be cheap. Some wires and instruments are faintly installed inside the walls. At first glance, it looks like the interior of a spaceship. It's full of sci-fi vibes. Mugeng and Rintaro really didn't expect that there would be such a place under Fairy Tale. Since entering this place, they haven't seen a fourth person. Judging from this situation, they believe that even the people in Fairy Tale didn't know about the existence of such a place. In fact, this was indeed the case. In the entire Fairy Tale, except for Noah, only a few people knew about the existence of this place. Noah led Mugeng and Rintaro through a long corridor. After an unknown amount of time, they arrived at the end of the corridor. Mugeng and Rintaro immediately raised their heads and looked at the end of the corridor. Then, the two saw a very sci-fi moving door. Next to the moving door, there was a sophisticated scanner sitting there. Noah came in front of the scanner and put his hand on the scanner under the watchful eyes of Mugeng and Rintaro. Thump. The scanner immediately made a sound as if a light was turned on. A ray of light swept across Noah's hand. Then, between the two dim lights at the top, one red and one green, the green light lit up. Only then did Mugeng and Rintaro realize that it was actually a scanner to confirm palm prints and fingerprints. The scanner confirmed the palm prints and fingerprints of the visitor. After confirming that there were no errors, the scanning interface automatically opened with a click sound. A small platform with a numeric keypad rose and replaced the original position of the scanning interface. Noah was very familiar with the numeric keypad. He quickly pressed at least 5 keys per second. After continuously pressing more than 30 numbers, the green light that had just dimmed lit up again. Gotcha! With the mechanical sound of the door opening, the moving door finally slid to the side, revealing everything inside to Mugeng and Rintaro. Originally, Mugeng and Rintaro thought that the inside of the door would be a very impressive place. Unfortunately, when the door slid open, what appeared in front of Mugeng and Rintaro was just a space about the size of an ordinary room. The floor, walls, and ceiling were all made of metal. It looked very cold. Rather than a room, it was more like a prison. In the room, other than the wires all over the floor, there was only a device that looked like a culture tank. In the device, a culture tank the size of a beaker was indeed connected to it. Inside it was an unknown red liquid. It looked like it was boiling, with bubbles rising from it. Mugeng and Rintaro could see it clearly. Looking at the culture tank in front of them, Mugeng and Rintaro couldn't help but look at it. After a while, they looked at each other and looked at Noah. Noah. The impatient Rintaro hesitated for a moment before calling out, "Noah. You said that the method to suppress the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body without increasing the rate of infection is this thing?" Noah shrugged and brought Mugeng and Rintaro into the room. When he arrived in front of the culture tank, he looked at the liquid inside and said softly, "The liquid inside is the blood that once flowed in my body." Blood? Mugeng and Rintaro widened their eyes at the same time. Noah ignored their shocked expressions and nodded. Then, he looked at Rintaro. "Rintaro, you are a product of the new human creation plan. Your right hand is a prosthetic arm made from supermecha. Not only does it have powerful attack power, but it can also increase the power of the hidden ammo. That's an incredible power. Is that so? Rintaro smiled bitterly. But didn't you easily block my attack and defeat me? That's right. Noah shrugged. Then, have you never doubted why an ordinary human like me can fight head-on with you who has the power of a mechanical soldier? It's not that I never doubted it, but I've always doubted it, Rintaro said in a deep voice. Your strength is too abnormal. It would be one thing if you had extraordinary martial arts skills like Mugen-san, but you once fought me head-on in terms of strength. That's not something a normal human body can have. You're right. This time, it was Noah's turn to smile bitterly. That's why I'm starting to doubt if I'm even human. After saying this, Noah shook his head and explained. Actually, my body is very special. Not only am I immune to the invasion of the protozoa virus, but I can also absorb the protozoa virus to strengthen the human body and increase my strength. Mugen-san and Rintaro were shocked. Really? Mugen-san stepped forward and asked quickly. Why? I also want to know the answer, but I only know that my body is special. I don't understand why. Noah sighed. So, don't ask me. All you need to know is that the protozoa virus has no effect on my body. Instead, it will strengthen my strength. After saying this, Noah seemed to be unwilling to talk about this and corrected the topic. After realizing that the protozoa virus has no effect on my body and knowing that the protozoa virus in the cursed child's body is corrosive, I began to use my body as a sample and let some of the senior researchers in Fairy Tail draw blood from my body for research. After research, we found that my blood is basically no different from the blood of a normal person. However, if we encounter the protozoa virus, the protozoa virus will be broken down by my blood. Noah revealed this secret that he had never revealed to outsiders before. After realizing that my blood can break down the protozoa virus, the researchers in Fairy Tail and I began to imagine that if my blood was injected into the cursed child's body, would it be able to break down the protozoa virus in the cursed child's body and turn the children back into normal people? Hearing this, Mugen-san and Rintaro's heartbeat began to accelerate. If Noah's idea was feasible, then the cursed child might really be able to turn back into a normal person and live a normal life. Unfortunately, soon, Mugen-san and Rintaro saw Noah's regretful expression. Unfortunately, after leaving my body, the activity of my blood seems to have decreased a lot. It may not be a problem to break down a small amount of the protozoa virus, but it won't work if you want to break down the protozoa virus in the cursed child's body. Noah looked at Mugen-san and Rintaro. However, although I can't break down the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body, if the cursed child is injected with my blood, the invasion rate of the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body will be greatly reduced. Together with the preparation, the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body will no longer cause any invasion to the children's bodies. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah turned around and faced the culture tank. And what you see now is the serum developed using my blood as a sample. Mugen-san and Rintaro were immersed in the information that Noah revealed. They did not hide the shock in their hearts and showed it on their faces. Completely breaking down the protozoa virus. This was the result that people all over the world had been researching for 10 years, but they had never been able to find anything. Now, this result was displayed in front of them. How could Mugen-san and Rintaro not be shocked? Chapter 175. The protozoan virus in the cursed child's body was the same as the protozoan virus in the cursed child's body. Therefore, both Mugen and Rintaro knew that the serum sample in front of them could not only prevent the infection rate of the cursed child from increasing, but also prevent the protozoan virus from mutating. It was a serum that could completely suppress the protozoan virus. If used well, the serum sample before them could even be made into a biochemical weapon specifically used against protozoans. Like the Qi and the Qi, it could reduce the activity of the protozoan virus and become the key to humanity's victory over the protozoan virus. In addition, if the serum was provided to humans who were injected with body fluids by protozoans and were in danger of mutating into protozoans, then if used in time, it might be able to eliminate the protozoan virus that had not completely spread out in the human body, saving humans from the danger of mutating into protozoans. It was precisely because of such important reasons that humans had been researching ways to suppress the protozoan virus for the past 10 years, but until now, they had not succeeded. Perhaps no one knew that the protozoan virus serum that could drive humans all over the world crazy was right under this little fairy tale. Phew, after a while, Mugging and Rintaro heaved a heavy sigh of relief, as if they had digested all the information that Noah had revealed. With this, Yenju, Xiaoshi, and Hino won't be in danger of mutating into protozoans anymore, right? Rintaro realized that his voice was trembling. Also, humans won't be in danger of mutating into protozoans anymore, right? That has nothing to do with me, Noah replied coldly. I'm researching the serum for the children, not for the selfish and ugly people in this world. Although Noah already knew that not all humans in this world had a dirty side, most people still could not escape from the dark side of humanity. Therefore, Noah still did not have a good impression of the people in this world. Rintaro understood this and immediately shut up. But Mugging looked at Noah and asked bluntly, "What does this have to do with you wanting us to join Fairy Tale?" Hearing this, Noah reached out his hand and gently stroked the surface of the culture tank, staring at the liquid inside. After a while, he said with shocking words, "I want to hand this over to you, and I also want to hand Fairy Tale over to you to manage." "What did you say?" Both Mugging and Ryotaro gasped at the same time. "Here, Mugging, Rintaro." Before the two of them had time to react, Noah's dark pupils flashed with a strange light as he spoke. "I want Tokyo's fairy tale to become the world's fairy tale." This short sentence not only jolted Mugging and Rintaro out of their stupor, it also instantly made them understand Noah's plan. He wants Tokyo's fairy tale to become the world's fairy tale. In short, Noah wants Fairy Tale to become the world's cursed child's shelter. If this is really the case, Noah's change the world can definitely be achieved. In this world where protogut animals wreaked havoc, humans relied on weapons to barely obtain the ability to protect themselves from the protogut animals. However, it was limited. Sooner or later, the chi in this world will be depleted. When that time comes, what will humans do? They can only rely on the cursed child's power that surpasses that of humans to fight against the protogut animals. But if all the cursed children in the world were to join the fairy tale, then what would the fairy tale become? It's very simple. When that time comes, Fairy Tale will become the only organization in the world with an initiator. If the police all over the world wanted a suitable partner, they would also join Fairy Tale one after another, making Fairy Tale an unprecedented huge police organization that could influence the whole world. If the humans who had lost all of their cursed children still wanted to deal with the primitive animals, they could only bow down to the Fairy Tale. The status of the cursed children in Fairy Tale will soar to the sky. Not only will they be able to get rid of the status of a street rat, but they can even ride on the heads of the humans in this world. Because humans can only rely on them. Such a whimsical plan to control the needs of the humans in the world by owning all the cursed children, if it was proposed by another person, it would definitely have a tragic end. However, Fairy Tale is different. As long as there was a serum that could completely suppress the protozoan virus in a cursed child's body, which cursed child wouldn't want to join the fairy tale? The serum sample here is the mother. You can use the value-added device to obtain the serum for the cursed children. As long as the mother of the serum sample is not lost, even if someone else obtains the value-added serum, there is no way to replicate it. Noah suddenly smiled. After all, there is only one serum that can be developed using my blood, and there is only one mother that can be used to increase the value of the serum. Mugino and Rintaro were completely speechless. It was not that they were making a fuss, but the plan that Noah proposed was too big, to the point that they could not help but be afraid. Once the rulers of those countries realize that something is wrong with the large-scale adoption of the cursed child, it won't be something that can be resolved with just a few words. Rintaro's voice was a little hoarse. It was obvious that he was too shocked. Then it's very likely that Fairy Tale will become the public enemy of the entire world. Is that okay? However, the person who refuted Rintaro was none other than Mugino himself. Riki-kun. Mugino bitterly smiled and shook his head. Who would want to be the enemy of an organization that has gathered a large number of cursed children? Rintaro was suddenly speechless. If Noah's plan was to be carried out, then, if they could only rely on the cursed children to deal with primitive animals, how could the humans possibly overestimate themselves and deal with the fairy tale that had a large number of cursed children? It was not that they did not want to deal with it, but that they could not. It was such a simple and crude logic. Only when humans realize the preciousness of the cursed children will they understand who is the weak side. Noah's somewhat cruel words echoed. In this chaotic world, only those with power have the right to speak, and humans are weak. I will use facts to tell them that they have no right to look down on humans. Do you want to become my sword again? Noah first looked at Mugino and smiled. However, this time, you will not live for revenge, but for me, for those children. This will be the meaning of your life. My meaning of life. Mugino's delicate body trembled violently, and a pair of eyes that had originally dimmed due to the end of her revenge suddenly lit up. What about you? At this time, Noah looked at Rintaro again, as if he had seen through the weakness in his heart, and looked directly into Rintaro's eyes. Do you want to lead the children who changed their fate and the fairy tale who ruled over the world to defeat all the protogut animals and save the world? Rintaro's eyes flashed with a flash of light. Let the cursed children rise again? Defeat all the protogut animals? These two words hit Rintaro's weak spot, as he believed in upholding the meaning of justice. Seeing that Mugino and Rintaro's expressions had brightened, Noah's lips slowly curled up. He knew that this matter was settled. Chapter 176. The Tentong Civilian Guard Company was disbanded. Early in the morning of the next day, Mugging personally disbanded the Tentong Civil Guard Company and returned all the rent for the company's office. Together with Rintaro, they moved into Fairy Tale. On this day, Kino and Rintaro officially announced that they would join Fairy Tale and become a member of Fairy Tale. Next, Kino will be the acting president of Fairy Tale. Together with Xiaoshi, who is the president's advisor, and Hina, who is the president's assistant, Kino will take care of the entire Fairy Tale. In a way, she will become the leader of Fairy Tale. As for Rintaro, he will take Yenju and select a group of like-minded people from Fairy Tale to form a travel group and travel around the world. Of course, this is just a cover-up on the surface. Rentaro's real job was to travel all over the world to investigate the situation of the cursed children, and secretly recruit all of them into the Fairy Tale and bring them back to the Fairy Tale. Currently, Rintaro was the only one in this special travel group. However, as Fairy Tale grows stronger, there will be more and more travel groups like this. Sooner or later, all of the cursed children in the world will be brought back to Fairy Tale, completely changing the fate of these children, and completely changing the situation of the world. In order to make Fairy Tale grow to the point where it can accommodate all of the cursed children and a large number of people in the world, Noah and Kino also secretly carried out an operation. Although it's called an operation, in fact, it's just Noah personally going to an unexplored area, choosing a suitable terrain, and killing all of the protozoa there to empty the land. Mugging, on the other hand, began to arrange for people to purchase a large amount of pyrolite and prepare to make a monolith. He would secretly transport it to the place chosen by Noah, where he would build a paradise comparable to the Tokyo area, but only belonging to the Fairy Tale. With the efforts of Noah, Mugino, Rintaro, Natsuya, Hina, Yenju, and the others, it was believed that it wouldn't be long before this new area named Fairy Tale was discovered and listed on the map, and people would be shocked to discover it. Fairy Tale had already grown to a point where they could no longer resist. When that time came, the Fairy Tale would rule over the entire world, and the cursed child would be completely overthrown. Humans would only be able to rely on the Fairy Tale to survive. Of course, at present, this operation is just the beginning, and there is still a lot of work to be done to reach a mature stage. These work, Noah is very assured to let Kino, Rintaro, Xiaoshi, Hina, Yenju, and the others handle it, while he quietly hid behind the scenes and began to withdraw from management. Kino, Rintaro, Xiaoshi, Hina, Yanzhu, and the others who already understand Noah's reason for doing this, although they are a little depressed, but yesterday, Noah specifically talked to them about this matter. So, even if they are a little sad, Kino and the others still understand Noah's reason, and put all of their attention into their work, and do their best for their own ideals. Tokyo 1, Xingju. In the spacious room, Xingju is playing the piano. Originally, Xing Tianzi used the piano in his room as a piece of furniture to decorate the room, rather than to play a musical instrument. But, ever since he learned the piano from Noah, Xingju would play the piano whenever he is free. Over time, the piano has already become Xingju's daily pastime. But today, Xingju has been absent-minded while playing the piano, and from time to time he makes mistakes, as if his soul has left his body. Every time Xingju plays the piano, a figure will appear in his mind. When that person is strong and domineering. When that person is gentle and considerate. He recalled the time when that person was furious. When that person shoots with a gun. And so on. And this phenomenon, since the first time that person who has been appearing in Xingju's mind met Xingju, he has been rude to Xingju. As the ruler of the Tokyo area, Xingju not only has the necessary political skills, but also the appearance, heart, character, and conduct are impeccable. Who would have the guts and heart to speak sarcastically to such a perfect young lady who had the looks, temperament, status, and wealth? Who would have the guts and heart to speak sarcastically to her? And not only did that person do it, but he also completely disregarded Xingju's face, leaving and coming as he pleased, and has always been very strong. Since the first time that person treated Xingju like this, Xingju has begun to care about him. Not for other reasons, but because no one has ever treated Xingju like this. Later, that person also showed all kinds of performance in front of Xingju. Strong side. Domineering side. Gentle side. Considerate side. Even for his family and companions, he was angry and became the enemy of the entire Tokyo area. The Elysian Emperor saw all of this. Unconsciously, this little care began to grow, and Xingju couldn't help but start to pay attention to him. When that person stood up for him, argued with Qi Wuzhongshuan, and forced Qi Wuzhongshuan to retreat, Xingju would feel a trace of joy. When that person did not hesitate to ignore his persuasion and refused his invitation, Xingju would feel lost and sad. When that person, for his family and companions, made a declaration of hostility in front of the entire Tokyo area, Xingju would feel particularly anxious. When that person skipped the celebration and left him to deal with the aftermath, Xingju would feel helpless and angry. Especially when that person, in order to teach him piano, got close to him and blew hot air in his ear, Xingju's heartbeat would speed up a lot and his heart would be very nervous. In this way, Xingju became more and more concerned about that person. And when that person, in front of all the police and the public, faced the entire army of primitive intestine animals alone, and used an unknown method to instantly kill all the primitive intestine animals, Xingju's figure bathed in sacred light deeply penetrated into Xingju's heart. What was that method, Xingju didn't know, and neither did others. When Xingju asked the other party said that it was just a weapon that was accidentally obtained like bullets, which was a half-believed, half-perfunctory answer, leaving behind a mysterious side. It was this mystery that had caused the Elysian prince to be so uneasy. Until now, Xingju realized that he really didn't know that man at all. This also made Xingju have strong emotions, and he couldn't help but want to get in touch with him. Unfortunately, after the defeat of the Tentong family, the other party never contacted the Holy Son of Heaven again. This was also the reason why Xingju was uneasy. Of course, the reason why Xingju was uneasy was not only because there was no news of the other party, but also because of a sudden and inexplicable impulse. An impulse to see the other party. Xingju didn't know why, but he had this feeling. If he couldn't see the other party now, perhaps, it would be difficult to see him again in the future. Driven by this feeling, Xingju became more and more uneasy, and he sighed. He glanced at the sky outside and thought about what he should do next. When he realized that he still had some free time, he began to hesitate. In fact, as long as he made a phone call, Xingju could hear the other party's voice. However, only today, Xingju didn't have the thought of calling the other party. Instead, the urge to see the other party was particularly strong. After a while, Xingju finally made a decision, stood up, and walked out of the room. Chapter 177. Holding a dazzling night sword that was as sharp as ice, Noah used a piece of cloth to wipe the sword bit by bit. On the side, the body of the modified large-caliber revolver had been wiped extremely clean. Magazines filled with manufactured bullets were scattered around it. The pitch-black body of the revolver flashed with gorgeous arcs of light from time to time. It was very eye-catching. A sword and a gun. One white and one black. Such two special weapons, one was brought out from the world of fairy tale, and the other was a product of this world. Not to mention their performance and usefulness, they also had a special meaning. Therefore, Noah wanted to carry them with him. Carry them and leave this world. The world fragment, scattered in this world, has been found. The faintly discernible special palpitations of being able to leave this world at any time once again appeared in Noah's heart. Noah, who had already experienced it once, knew that as long as he grasped the throbbing feeling in his heart, then with the help of this world, he would be able to leave this world and return to the between worlds. However, before that, Noah must ensure that fairy tale is absolutely safe and that nothing will happen to it. Only then can he leave this world with peace of mind. This was also the reason why Noah exposed the serum sample of the protozoan virus at this time and proposed the plan to make fairy tale a shelter for the world's cursed children. Similarly, this was also the reason why Noah let Mugging and Rentaro join fairy tale and handed over fairy tale to Mugging, Xiaoshi, Hina, and others to manage fairy tale. Don't think that Mugging didn't have management skills just because she ran Tentong's civilian guard company. As the daughter of the former Tentong family, Mugging's management skills were definitely not worse than Noah's. She even surpassed him in some aspects. Otherwise, Moj wouldn't have put Mugging in her eyes and treated her as a sworn enemy. In addition, with the help of the smart Xiaoshi and the capable Hina, fairy tale, in their hands, they can definitely fully utilize Noah's plan and the abundant resources prepared to realize the plan. Perhaps, when Noah has the opportunity to return to this world again, fairy tale would have become an existence that the world can't ignore, and those poor children would have completely turned over. Cha, in the subtle friction sound, Noah slowly put the knight's sword in his hand back into the scabbard, then put the scabbard with the sword into the side bag, put it aside, and picked up a magazine on the table in front of him. It was an XD series automatic pistol magazine. Taking a closer look, the bullets loaded in the XD series automatic pistols magazine were all made of crystal. If it was the world of fairy tale, the sorcerers would definitely be able to recognize these crystals. Magic crystals. Those were magic crystals used to store magic. However, it was a one-time use item. These magic crystals were forced into Noah's luggage by Lee Sana when he left fairy tale. Originally, there were some very convenient magic stored inside, such as magic that allowed one to breathe in water, magic that allowed one to automatically find their way, magic that allowed one to emit light and heat, and even magic that allowed one to isolate themselves from the heat of magma and move about freely like swimming. Now, all the magic inside had been cleared out by Noah and stored in his shatter magic, and made into 12 bullets. Due to the fact that the magic crystals themselves did not contain much magic, the power of the shatter magic, stored in the magic crystal bullets, was much weaker than that of Noah's own magic. However, it was still enough to deal with a Stage V protozoan. After all, no matter how strong a Stage V protozoan was, or how hard its skin was, as long as it was hit by the shatter magic, there was only one outcome: to be crushed. Therefore, unless the opponent had a terrifying level of regeneration that allowed them to recover even if their bones were crushed, these magic crystal bullets were no match for them. Carrying the magazine, Noah put his gun and magazine into the holster, then put it on his waist. After covering them with his jacket, he picked up the side bag and walked to the door. Just as he opened the door and walked out of his house, a group of figures standing side by side in front of him entered Noah's eyes. Noah. Chairman. Brother. Seeing Noah walk out of his house, the group of people standing side by side could not help but call out to him. The group was led by Mugging, Xiaoshi, Hina, Yanzhu, Rentaro, and the others. Chairman. Yanzhu said with a face full of reluctance. Are you really leaving? Noah's gaze swept across the faces of Yanzhu, Xiaoshi, Hina, Mugging, Rentaro, and the others. After discovering that there was more or less a hint of reluctance in their eyes, he smiled bitterly, stepped forward, and reached out his hand to pat Yanzhu and Hina's little heads. Didn't I already tell you yesterday? You still can't accept it today? But, as expected, Yanzhu and Tina were still unable to let go of their emotions. Even Xiaoshi was staring intently at Noah with an uncontrollable sense of despondency in his eyes. There was nothing Noah could do about this. All he could do was comfort the three children while looking at Mugging and Rentaro. At least tell us where you're going, Mugging said with a grumbling expression, as if she had been wanting to say this for a long time. In that case, we'll be able to contact you at any time. I have my reasons as well. Please forgive me. Noah sighed. Then, he took out the magazine containing the magic crystal bullets and tossed it to Rentaro. There are only 12 bullets, but if there's one, Scorpio will have to die again. Rentaro, who reflexively caught the magazine, nearly threw it out of his hands. Mugging, who was standing beside him, exclaimed in shock. Could this be the bullet you're going to use to kill Scorpio? That's why you'd better use it well. Noah said teasingly. Then, he walked to Mugging, took one of her hands, and rolled up the sleeve on her hand. Before Mugging could react, Noah reached out and placed his palm on Mugging's arm. Then, he closed his eyes, and the magic power in his body surged. Hum. A burst of dazzling light suddenly surged from Noah's palm that was pressed on Mugging's arm, shocking everyone present and causing them to close their eyes subconsciously. After a while, the strong light faded, and everyone opened their eyes. Then, they were all stunned. This was because a golden pattern had appeared on Mugging's arm. What's this? Mugging couldn't react in time. However, Noah casually said, It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, but you should be able to feel that there is a switch in your heart. If you press that switch, it will work. Although it can only be used 3 times, if there is a third Kanto war, the person who will save Tokyo will not be me, but you. Hearing this, everyone immediately looked at the golden pattern on Mugging's arm in shock. Could it be that this was the weapon that Noah had accidentally obtained, like the bullet that had wiped out an army of more than 2,000 protozoa? All right. Noah took a step back and smiled in a relaxed manner. With these 2 items, I believe that no matter what happens, you will be able to protect the fairy tale and prevent it from getting hurt. After saying this, Noah casually walked past everyone and walked outside. Noah. President. Brother. Mugging, Rentaro, Yanzhu, Xiaoshi, and Hina couldn't help but call out. The next moment, a similarly carefree voice entered everyone's ears. There will be a time when we meet again. The group suddenly stopped and looked at Noah's figure as he walked away. After a long time, a long time. Chapter 178. The pitch-black giant wall was like a black mountain peak deep in the clouds. It had a deeper color than the darkness, giving people an invisible pressure. However, the transport planes and helicopters that came and went still used strengthened nets to hang pieces of metal cubes. They flew up into the clouds and continued to work on this pitch-black giant wall. Number 32 Monolith. After a few days, this new number 32 monolith was built as high as a mountain peak. It had the same invisible majesty as the other monolith. Noah, who came from District 39, specially made a trip here. He looked up at the majestic monolith, surrounded by a large number of transport planes and helicopters, and fell into his memories. In this world, Noah stayed for a relatively heavy year compared to the time in the fairy tale world. Looking back at the beginning, Noah realized that he had exhausted all his efforts to establish Fairy Tale, which was now famous throughout the entire Tokyo area and destined to rule the entire world in the future. The original intention of establishing fairy tale was just to let a group of ostracized children live a better life. That is to say, the reason why the fairy tale was born today was because of Noah's sympathy and pity for the cursed child. Noah, who couldn't bear to see a group of innocent children being treated like that, decided to establish the fairy tale, a shelter for the cursed children. Later on, because of this, he was baptized by the plundered generation, similar to the celestial child's chrysanthemum, and understood the ugliness of this world. Since then, it could not be said that Noah was unhappy, but he was a little suffocated by the dark side that spread in this world. As a result, in order to resist, he learned social skills, political skills, and how to treat his enemies cruelly. He even learned how to kill. This was something he didn't learn in the fairy tale. Now, Noah, who learned these things, said that he had matured and his heart had undergone a transformation, but was this transformation really good? If it was just to live in the fairy tale world, these things shouldn't be necessary, right? Thinking of this, Noah couldn't help but miss the noisy magic guide guild. Now, Noah understood why people who left their hometown missed their homes so much. Because, only after leaving their hometown, outside, would they know how wonderful the life they had lived there was. Noah was the same. After coming to this world, he knew how precious the unrestrained life in another world was. However, Noah didn't regret leaving the fairy tale and coming to this world. As for the reason, it was very similar to the original intention of establishing the fairy tale in this world. It was just because Noah wanted to help those worlds that were like children. Until now, Noah realized that the original intention of establishing the fairy tale, after leaving the other world and establishing the fairy tale, in this world were both so simple that Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Screech. Suddenly, the sound of emergency brakes drilled into Noah's ears, waking up Noah, who was immersed in his memories. At that moment, Noah turned his head and looked at the source of the sound with a puzzled expression. Immediately afterward, he saw a black luxury car stopping there abruptly. The car door was also opened forcefully. A young girl got out of the car and ran over as if she wanted to crash into him. Noah's face showed a startled expression as expected. She was wearing a white wedding dress, and her silver shoulder-length hair seemed to be shining. Her peerlessly beautiful face was filled with an anxious expression that was rarely seen before. She quickly ran in Noah's direction. Other than the Holy Son of Heaven, who else could it be? Ah! Just when Noah had just seen the full appearance of the person, the white high heels on the Holy Son of Heaven's feet that were not suitable for running at all turned under the other party's running. She lost her balance, exclaimed, and fell forward. Noah finally reacted. He quickly jumped forward and hugged the falling Holy Son of Heaven, so that the dignified head of state would not fall down disgracefully. What are you doing? Noah just wanted to scold her, but the next moment, when he saw the expression on the face of the Holy Son of Heaven who raised her head, all the words he wanted to say were forgotten completely, and he was speechless. He saw that the Holy Son of Heaven seemed to be enduring something. She pursed her lips and unconsciously held Noah's hand tightly with her slender hands wearing smooth white lace gloves. A pair of beautiful eyes were full of anxiety. President Noah, is it true that you are going to leave the Yodo area? Hearing this, Noah was startled and asked in surprise. How do you know? I just went to fairy tale. The president of Tiantong told me about this and told me the direction you left in. The Holy Son of Heaven couldn't help but hold Noah's hand tightly, and she also looked at Noah's eyes tightly. She didn't seem to realize that she was infinitely close to Noah, nor did she realize that she was doing something very intimate. Her expression became sad. That is to say, President Noah, it is true that you are going to leave the Yodo area, right? Looking at the sad look on the Holy Son of Heaven's face, Noah panicked for a while. What's going on? Why did she show such an expression? Could it be that this princess is also reluctant to let me leave? Impossible, right? My relationship with her doesn't seem to be that good. Is it because of the residents of the Yodo area who reject fairy tale, so you want to leave the Yodo area? The Holy Son of Heaven's seemingly pale lips were tighter and tighter. Indeed, what those people did was a bit too much, but that was also because of the persecution of animals. I believe that one day, they will also wake up to what they have done and let go of the hatred in their hearts. So, President Noah, please don't blame those residents. Hearing this sentence, even Noah couldn't help but admire the Holy Son of Heaven. Before the beginning of the Third Kanto War, it wasn't only a fairy tale that was hurt by the brainless residents in the Yodo area, but this princess was also the same. At that time, some people said that Seiji was incompetent, some said that Seiji was muddle-headed, some said that Seiji was not able to protect the Tokyo area and deserved to die. There were even some people who attacked her and said all kinds of dirty words. Noah also heard that some residents who coveted the beauty of the princess even felt that the Yodo area couldn't be saved, and that they were going to die. With crazy feelings, they touched the Holy Son of Heaven and tried to violate the Holy Son of Heaven. As a result, none of those ordinary people succeeded, and they were all arrested. Under such circumstances, the Holy Son of Heaven not only did not have any negative feelings towards these residents, but also spoke for them. Obviously, she didn't take these things to heart. She is really kind. So, Noah's attitude also softened, and he didn't avoid the Holy Son of Heaven's gaze and shook his head. I didn't leave the Yodo area because of this. Then, the Holy Son of Heaven was at a loss. Then why did you leave the Yodo area? Is it strange that I left the Yodo area? Noah sighed. I'm not from the Yodo area. You should have noticed it, right? The Holy Son of Heaven was suddenly speechless, and after a while, she whispered. In other words, you want to go back to where you came from, right? Go back to where I came from? Noah pondered for a while and smiled bitterly. Not necessarily. Maybe, I will go to a new place, that's not for sure. Looking at the slightly bitter expression on Noah's face, the Holy Son of Heaven opened her mouth, but in the end, she could only squeeze out such a sentence. Then, will you come back? Chapter 179. Then, will you come back? The question from Xingzi made Noah fall into a state of silence. Will I come back? If Noah's answer was accurate, then he wouldn't have to find the world fragment and return to the world fragment. He didn't have to first eliminate the Tentong family that was a threat to Fairy Tail, and then abruptly invite Makoto and Rintaro to join Fairy Tail and propose a plan to change the degree of the world. It was precisely because Noah himself didn't know if he would come back in the future that he needed to do all the things he needed to do in this world and arrange them properly before he could leave with peace of mind. Of course, even if Noah didn't like the dark side of this world, in this world, Noah also had ties. If possible, he certainly didn't want to abandon these ties. Whether it was Fairy Tail or this world, both worlds had Noah's ties. Could Noah choose a world and never leave? That was already an impossible matter. Therefore, Noah could only choose to believe that he would come back in the future. However, seeing Noah fall into silence, Xingzi, who didn't get a definite answer, thought that Noah would never come back. His heart seemed to be empty in an instant, leaving nothing behind. From a young age, the people around the Holy Sun, from the family tutor to the celestial chrysanthemum minister, were all respectful to the Holy Sun. Because of this, when Noah appeared beside the Elysian Emperor naturally took notice of such an anomaly. The Elysian Emperor didn't have the slightest respect for the Elysian Emperor and would even act extremely domineering in front of the Elysian Emperor. After that, Noah also brought Xingzi a lot of experiences, letting Xingzi experience a variety of experiences and emotions that he couldn't experience from others in the past. And this time, Xingzi finally experienced the most essential experience of a young girl because of Noah. Pain. Heartache. When Xingzi thought that she would never see this strange person in her life again, in addition to the pain in her heart, there was also the rejection and denial of this reality that even she couldn't believe. Therefore, the Elysian sun slowly let go of Noah's hand, and his clear and beautiful eyes became cloudy. He had never experienced this before, and he didn't know why he was feeling this way. The Elysian sun slowly let go of Noah's hand, and his clear and beautiful eyes became cloudy. What about Fairy Tail? Xingzi found that she was using a very tactful and useless method to persuade him to stay. Aren't you worried that fairy tale will have problems without you? If I wasn't worried, I wouldn't have stayed until now. Noah closed his eyes, turned around, and turned his back to Shingzi. Mugino, Rentaro, Yenju, Natsuya, and Hina are all very capable people. Fairy tale will definitely be fine in their hands. Is that so? Shingzi lowered her head, one hand clenched in front of her chest, and forcefully grabbed the collar of her dress. I thought, if it was you, you would definitely protect those children forever. It's not that I don't have such thoughts. Noah's voice echoed. Unfortunately, children who have been living under the protection of others will never grow up. Sooner or later, those children who have grown up will no longer be protected by a fairy tale, but they will be the ones to protect fairy tale. Shingzi was silent, and her voice was getting lower and lower. President Noah is really much better than me. I can't win against you every time. I'm not as smart as you. I don't have the big picture as you. Tokyo also left you with such a memory. It's natural that you would leave. Noah was speechless when he heard the Elysian Emperor's words. He looked at the princess speechlessly. These words, no matter how you listen to it, it sounds like she's giving up on herself. But Shingzi didn't seem to realize that her current state was a bit too obvious compared to before. She held her stomach and suddenly said, I already have the conditions to have children. The sudden abnormal words made Noah directly stunned. Actually, the trusted aides of the sacred chamber have been urging me to leave behind an heir as soon as possible. Shingzi's tone was slightly depressed. The previous Shingzi only reigned for a year before suddenly passing away, so I, who was not mature at the time, had no choice but to inherit the throne and become the Shingzi of Tokyo. Now, I am the only direct descendant of the sacred chamber, so the trusted aides are worried that I will suddenly die like the previous Shingzi, so it is necessary to leave behind an heir to inherit the throne. Noah, who didn't expect Shingzi to reveal the secrets of the sacred chamber, could only remain silent and quietly listen to Shingzi. In order to leave behind an heir with excellent genes, the trusted aides of the sacred chamber have already screened out a lot of candidates, and they want me to choose my husband. Shingzi raised her head and looked straight at Noah. However, compared to a child born in order to leave behind excellent genes, I want a crystallization of love more. Noah wasn't surprised at all by her words. Long ago, Noah already had the feeling that the high and mighty Shingzi was just a young girl in the prime of her youth. For a young girl in the prime of her youth, of course, compared to an excellent husband, of course, she would want a husband who would love her wholeheartedly, and whom she would be able to give her sincere feelings for. Even Shingzi was the same. No one can understand me. Those who walk around me, who constantly want to prove themselves, mostly value my identity and status. There is more than one existence like a bodyguard around me. Xing Tianzi clasped his hands together, as if he was waiting for something, and placed them in front of him. Although I have never regretted doing my part for the Tokyo region as the Holy Son of Heaven, sometimes I feel very tired. It is very hard. President Noah, I wish for a person of the opposite sex who can stay by my side and share my burden. This was normal for a young girl in the prime of her youth. Noah wasn't surprised at all. However, what Shingzi said next really surprised Noah. And he was very surprised. In fact, he was shocked. I know, compared to you, I am very immature, but I still hope that you can stay by my side. The Elysian son's cheeks began to turn pink, but he still stared at Noah and said these impactful words nervously. As a man of the opposite sex. Noah almost didn't show the wavering in his heart on his face. What does this mean? What does this mean? This. What does this mean? Under the gaze of Shingzi, Noah actually had the urge to run away for the first time in his life. This. Is this a confession? I understand now, Mr. Noah. Shingzi clenched her hands so hard that they turned white, but she still bravely expressed her feelings. So, unknowingly, I have already started to treat you as a man of the opposite sex, and I love you. If Noah still couldn't understand what Shingzi meant, then he would have lived for so many years in vain. Noah could only suppress the inexplicable anxiety in his heart and forced a smile. I don't think I have done anything to deserve your love. It's just that you didn't realize it. Even I almost didn't realize it. But when I realized it, I was already saying it. Elysian's son looked at Noah with a passionate gaze that had never been seen before. So, can you stay for me? After saying this, Xingzi looked like she was about to faint, and her delicate body began to sway. Clearly, even the Elysian son of heaven had reached his limit at this point. Noah was completely speechless, and his heart began to beat faster as he looked at Xingzi, who was desperately trying not to look away from him. Chapter 180. There was no need to prove it. Everyone knew how outstanding Xing Tianzi was. Although Xing Tianzi kept saying that she was immature, as a 16-year-old girl who managed such a large area and did her best to protect the people of this area, who could guarantee that they would do a better job than Xing Tianzi? In terms of identity and status, Xing Tianzi was the ruler of the entire Tokyo area. This identity and status could not be ignored, and no one could look down on her. In terms of appearance, Xing Tianzi was extremely beautiful. Not to mention the Tokyo area, even the people in the other 4 areas of the country, and even the people outside of the country, clearly knew about her. Then, when such a young girl who was perfect in terms of appearance, identity, status, and character confessed to him and begged him to stay by her side, how many people would sincerely refuse? Noah also could not refuse. Of course, this was not because Noah had improper thoughts about Xing Tianzi. If he had such thoughts, Xing Tianzi, who was especially sensitive to such things because of her own experience, would have noticed it long ago. Noah couldn't reject the Holy Son of Heaven because he couldn't bear to reject such a beautiful woman, that's all. If the Holy Son of Heaven made a request that was too willful, and the Holy Son of Heaven was a woman who only had good looks and bad conduct, then Noah would definitely be able to coldly refuse. However, for Xing Tianzi, in the world of humans, it was believed that not more than 1% of the people would have true malice towards her. Therefore, Noah naturally had no reason to coldly refuse her. However, that being said, Noah also could not accept Xing Tianzi. At that moment, an indescribable silence pervaded the surroundings. As the indescribable silence filled the air, Xing Tianzi's originally rosy face gradually turned white, and even transitioned to paleness. Seeing that Noah was silent, one could imagine the nervousness in her heart. Xing Tianzi could only bite her lips and speak with some apprehension. I am not able to attract your attention. If this sentence was said, Noah would probably be spat on by countless people in the Tokyo area. After all, if even a girl like Xing Tianzi could not attract Noah's attention, then how harsh was Noah's taste? Phew. Noah could only first take a deep breath and then slowly exhale. After adjusting all the emotions in his heart, he looked at Xing Tianzi, whose face was full of uneasiness, and secretly made a decision. He did not expect that other than Lisanna, he would use the same method on others. With that thought in mind, Noah stretched out his hand and showed 3 fingers. 3 years. 3 years? Xing Tianzi was stunned. I have a reason to leave here, and I cannot agree to your request. Without giving Xing Tianzi a chance to react, Noah said decision made. So, 3 years, 3 years, 3 years, if you still have the same feelings for me, then, at that time, I will definitely come back. Once again, Noah said something without any basis. However, just like the time with Lisanna, even if there was no basis, since he had made a promise, no matter what, when the time came, no matter what, Noah would find a way to come back. With such determination, Noah said the same thing to Lisanna back then, and now, he brought it up again. However, this time, the girl standing in front of Noah was no longer Noah's childhood sweetheart, but Xing Tianzi. Xing Tianzi stared blankly at Noah, unable to react for a long time. She lowered her head, and only after a long time did she raise it up, her beautiful face regaining its usual calm and holy expression. I understand. Xing Tianzi gave Noah the warmest and most gentle smile in history. If this is Mr. Noah's decision, then, I swear, I will persevere for the next 3 years. It seemed that this kind-hearted girl did not have the slightest idea that Noah was just brushing her off. Instead, she treated it as a test that Noah had left for her. This made Noah begin to realize that he seemed to be slightly moved by this girl who was perfect in all aspects. He hurriedly shook his head to get rid of those meaningless thoughts. Noah took a deep breath, picked up his shoulder bag, and turned away, no longer looking at Xingtianzi. If you have any difficulties, look for Mu Geng. She can solve any problems that Chrysanthemum of the Celestial Child can solve for you. After saying this, Noah seemed to be afraid that he would be reluctant to part with her. He lifted his feet and walked towards the unexplored territory without looking back. Xingtianzi kept looking at Noah's back, as if praying for him. She clasped her hands together in front of her forehead and closed her eyes. I wish you all the best. In the desolate forest, Noah, who was walking aimlessly, turned back and looked at the Tokyo area surrounded by the monolith. I didn't expect that before leaving, would encounter such a thing. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and let out a long sigh. But, there is one more promise that needs to be fulfilled. After saying this, Noah closed his eyes, pressed one hand on his heart, and began to search for that faint throbbing feeling. He stretched out his hand and grasped it tightly. Wang! In the next second, Noah seemed to have turned into a phantom. His figure dissipated with the wind and disappeared in place. Between the worlds, Wang Wang Wang. As Noah opened his eyes, the familiar pure white world in front of him entered his field of vision. The surrounding space immediately emitted waves of joy. He saw that the feathers floating in the crystal ball like crystals danced in joy, and came to Noah's side. It was as if they were welcoming Noah's return, and they circled back and forth like a dance. Looking at the feathers around him that were like children exuding pure joy, and feeling the comfort as if he had returned to his mother's body, Noah's heart almost melted. Returning to Between the Worlds, Noah felt that the darkness he experienced in the Black Bullet world for a year had all turned into the past, and even his heart had been purified. This feeling was inconceivable, but also very wonderful. At least, with this feeling, Noah felt that everything he experienced in the Black Bullet was worth it. Wang. Then, the feathers all began to retreat, and the broken feathers took the place of these feathers to surround Noah's side. Then, a broken feather floated from Noah's body, and came to the group of broken feathers around him. After circling around for a while, it suddenly touched one of the broken feathers. Ding! After a crisp sound, the two broken feathers perfectly fit together, and returned to a complete feather. Its body emitted a soft white light, and it returned to its original state. Noah's heart relaxed, and he looked around at the feathers and broken feathers that were dancing around him. After a while, he came to the front of one of the feathers. This feather in front of him was the world of Fairy Tale. With some nervousness, Noah reached out his hand and touched the feather that belonged to the world of Fairy Tale. In the next moment, a feeling of being sucked in appeared in Noah's senses. Noah immediately released his hand from the feather, and his face revealed an expression of ecstasy. This feeling of being sucked in was exactly the feeling of being able to enter the world of the feather. Noah, who had already experienced it once, knew that as long as he followed this feeling, he would be able to enter the world of the feather. Back to Fairy Tale. Suppressing the ecstasy in his heart, Noah followed his senses, came to the front of another feather, and put his hand on it. Ha 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 ha. The strong feeling appeared once again, and Noah clenched his fist. He finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chapter 181. Hua. When Noah opened his eyes and took in the scene in front of him, a burst of noise came into Noah's ears. Noah was slightly startled and quickly opened his eyes. What entered Noah's eyes was just a very ordinary street. At this time, Noah was in the middle of a crowded street. Around him, people who were talking or shouting into their phones constantly passed by Noah. On the side of the road, there were also cars moving or stopping. The traffic lights flashed very regularly. Even the sound of the trolley before it was built echoed clearly in the distance. Looking at such a scene, Noah's heart could not help but relax. He still remembered that when he first left the world of fairy tale and entered the Black Bullet, the place where Noah cut into was an unexplored area where the protozoa raged. At that time, the world of the Black Bullet gave Noah the feeling that it was full of despair and darkness. Now, the lively and ordinary scene in front of him and the scene when he first entered the world of the Black Bullet formed a sharp contrast in Noah's mind. Naturally, Noah could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seemed that the world he entered this time was not like the world of the Black Bullet, which was biased towards the negative. Of course, it was also possible that the scene in front of him was just a superficial phenomenon. In the dark of this world, there might be a dark side that ordinary people did not know. In any case, for Noah, this world was just a new and unfamiliar world. After confirming that he could return to the worlds of fairy tale and the Black Bullet at any time in between worlds, Noah no longer had any worries. He could enter other worlds with peace of mind and carry out the world fragment recovery. With a relieved mentality, Noah chose to enter this world. On the surface, this seemed to be a world that was close to the culture of the world of the Black Bullet. The evidence was that the language spoken by the people who constantly passed by Noah was Japanese, which Noah was familiar with. This was another piece of good news. After all, a language barrier would cause quite a lot of trouble. Noah had already experienced this when he entered the world of the Black Bullet. Therefore, the first knowledge that Noah crazily absorbed in the world of the Black Bullet was language. He also relied on his extraordinary memory and understanding to master all the languages in the world of the Black Bullet. Now, this approach could be regarded as a preliminary benefit. It allowed Noah to not be like the first time he entered another world, where he did not know anything and broke into the police station to find someone to practice his way of speaking. Since the culture of this world is more or less the same as that of the previous world, that means, if I want to move around in this world, I must first prepare an identity. Noah touched his chin. Yes, I must first prepare an identity and a household register. If necessary, I must also prepare an identity card, otherwise it will be difficult to move around. With this thought in mind, Noah left the scene under the gazes of many people under the slightly eye-catching situation. By the way, the reason why he attracted so much attention was very simple. It was only because Noah had been carrying the side cloth bag with the knight's sword on one shoulder. Da-da-da-da, under the extremely rhythmic tapping of the keyboard, Noah sat in a private room in an internet cafe. He quickly operated the computer in front of him, causing the computer screen to flash one after another. The scene of a 17 or 18-year-old youth in a private room in an internet cafe quickly tapping the keyboard gave people the feeling that he was a game expert, performing operations that others could not compare to. Therefore, no one would have thought that this 17 or 18-year-old youth in front of them was using the internet cafe's computer to hack into the country's personal data storage database. When he was still in the world of the Black Bullet, Noah had already learned this skill. The situation of the cursed child in the world of the Black Bullet was not very good. This was something that everyone knew. In some areas, the cursed child was not even allowed to have a household register. In other areas, there were some extreme people among the high-ranking officials who advocated stripping the cursed child of their household register. Just in case he needed it one day, Noah had learned some decent hacking skills under the guidance of an expert hacker in the Black Bullet. Using this skill, he helped many of the cursed child who had encountered difficulties in obtaining a household register. Noah didn't expect that there would be a time when this technology would be used on him. After spending a considerable amount of time, Noah finally succeeded in hacking into the country's database. In the personal data storage database, he left his own information without leaving a trace. Now there's no problem. As long as he left his own information in the country's household register, then using the excuse of lost or reported loss, it would be relatively easy to obtain the household register and ID card. After solving this problem, Noah began to browse the country's secret information. Of course, Noah wasn't interested in national secrets at all. He browsed through the information just to see if there were any secrets about this world that were unknown to the public so that he could carry out his plan. If this was a normal world where there were only ordinary people in all aspects, then Noah could act with less scruples. On the other hand, there were more things to consider. Using the internet cafe's computer to hack was not a safe thing to do, nor was it a rational thing to do. Therefore, Noah also took the time to browse some information. Suddenly, Noah noticed a line of small words marked in red and looked over. He saw that there were only 4 words on the red lettering. Dawn Organization. What kind of organization is this? Noah curiously clicked on it. Unfortunately, after clicking on it, the computer screen immediately showed an error warning box. Suddenly, Noah narrowed his eyes. What did this mean? It meant that this so-called Dawn organization, even in this country, was classified as a secret among secrets. Even the relevant government officials might not know the contents. For a moment, Noah had the urge to use his hacking skills again and directly hack into this secret, but after a while, he had no choice but to give up. With Noah's hacking skills, it might not be a problem to get personal information, but if he wanted to hack into a country's real secrets, it would be extremely insufficient. Without any other choice, Noah could only search for Dawn Organization on the internet. Of course, this was just to give it a try. Noah did not really think that a country's secret among secrets would be so easily found on the internet. However, although there wasn't any information about the Daybreak organization, another term appeared in the search results. Holaying Academy? Noah slightly frowned, clicked in, and read the search results. This was a very special academy. A combat technique training school. Needless to say, combat training was definitely a heresy in this peaceful world, and it attracted Noah's attention. What puzzled Noah even more was that there wasn't any detailed information about this school that cultivated combat skills on the internet. There were only a few pieces of information that would be strange to anyone with a discerning eye. First of all, students were exempted from tuition, accommodation, and food expenses. In addition, students' living expenses were provided. In addition, the founder of this academy was a research institution that he had never heard of. There was even less information about it than Holaying Academy. That's right, it was the Dawn organization. In addition to these, there was no information about the specific curriculum, background, and training purpose of Holaying Academy. The information about the Dawn organization only indicated that it was a research institution, but there was no record of what it was researching. This was a bit strange, no matter how he looked at it. Noah suddenly thought for a while, then stood up, turned off the computer in front of him, picked up the shoulder bag, and walked out of the room. Chapter 182. Walala. The calming sound of running water rose and fell slightly on the lukewarm surface of the water. Woo! The sound of the tram mixed with the sound of running water, but it did not disturb the tranquility at all. Instead, it seemed to exist naturally, making people feel that it was indispensable. This was the northern part of Tokyo Bay, where an artificial island that could only be accessed by a drooping monorail was located. The artificial island was surrounded by huge rock walls, and a door commensurate with its height was the only entrance to this artificial island. In the center stood a huge clock tower that could be clearly seen from the outside. From the outside, people who did not know would think that this was a military fortress. Of course, the so-called military fortress would not be built in such a conspicuous place. Naturally, the inside of the rock walls could not be a military structure filled with the smell of gunpowder, but some buildings. Although these buildings were extremely out of place with the buildings outside the island, they still didn't fit in. At this time, Noah was walking on a path that was specially beautified with beautiful cherry trees. Not far away, several buildings that were not small, in terms of height and scale entered Noah's eyes. The style of the buildings was probably closer to the Western style, but also had the flavor of the church. From the appearance, it was not an ordinary high-end building. Therefore, who would have thought that this was a school in the first place? Even Noah felt a little out of place. He tightened the strap of the side bag he was carrying on one side of his shoulder and could not help but sigh. This was the location of Holaying School. Originally, Noah thought that the location of this mysterious school would be gloomy and shameful. Who would have thought that it was actually such a high-end and beautiful place? Fortunately, Noah was not the kind of person who would judge the nature of a thing based on its appearance. Otherwise, he would really think that this was just the location of an ordinary aristocratic school. In fact, such a high-end place had many mysterious places. Although it was very unbelievable, everything on this artificial island operated with Haolang School as the center. That was to say, the location of the huge clock tower that could be seen even from the outside was the specific location of Haolang School. Noah was not the only one. Many students around were amazed by this high-end place. That's right. There were many students around Noah. These students were all here to participate in the entrance examination. Noah had only recently found out that Haolang Academy would be accepting applications from junior high school students from various schools today, allowing these students who were about to enter senior high school to enroll. As long as they could pass the school's admission examination today, then these students from various schools would be able to enter this school and enjoy the super high treatment of free tuition, accommodation, food, and monthly living expenses. It could be said that about 10 to 20% of the students who came here to register today were here for this reason. As for the remaining 80 to 90%, they seem to have been brought here by the staff of Haolang Academy who came to the school for an inspection. In other words, Haolang Academy had specially sent people to various schools to poach people. However, that was not strange. After all, Haolang Academy was really too mysterious. Even most people outside did not know of its existence. How could anyone take the initiative to apply for admission? This made the school seem even stranger. Undoubtedly, it looked so high-end, but why could it remain so mysterious outside? Even the students were specially sent to bring them here. Why did they do something superfluous? As long as this place was leaked as a publicity stunt, then the environment alone would make this place famous and attract many students, right? Unless, this school wasn't really just for people to study at all. Noah, who felt that this place was becoming more and more mysterious, deliberately found a school that the staff of Haolang Academy was inspecting and applied for admission. Then, he accepted a physical examination from the staff of Haolang Academy with the other students. As a result, this morning, Noah received a notice from the staff that he was qualified to participate in the entrance examination and was brought to this artificial island. After that, Noah found out that he was the only one who was qualified to participate in the entrance examination in the school he specially found. What criteria did they use to determine whether a person was qualified to participate in the entrance examination? Noah had no idea about this at all. Therefore, Noah came here. But this was also necessary. Because, after learning about the existence of this school and the Dawn organization yesterday, Noah had been inexplicably concerned about this place. It was very likely that this world was giving Noah a hint. A hint for the world fragment. With this thought in mind, Noah and the surrounding students from various schools toured the surroundings while being led by the staff to the front of a building. At this time, the staff shouted to the students here. Please line up here and go in to take the entrance examination in order. After leaving this sentence, the staff left directly, leaving the group of students in the same place after chattering for a while and lining up. Noah was in a position that was neither high nor low. There were not many students who came here to take the examination, so, if Noah was in the position, he could still clearly see the situation in front of him. Looking at the first student in line being led into the building by a person who looked like a doctor in a white coat, Noah scratched his cheek and unconsciously turned his body. Ouch! As a result, in the next second, Noah felt that the end of the side cloth bag on his right shoulder seemed to have touched the person behind him as he turned his body sideways. The other person also let out a slight cry of pain. Noah hurriedly turned his head and looked behind him. Then, he was stunned. He saw a young girl with bright brown waist-length hair tied into a ponytail that hung behind her waist. She had a pretty face that was both cute and beautiful, and she was gradually transforming from a young girl into an adult. She was standing behind Noah and holding her head. She seemed to be in pain with one eye open and the other closed. Noah, who did not expect to have such a cute and beautiful girl standing behind him, was subconsciously stunned. When he saw the other person holding her head, he realized that the person his side cloth bag touched was this girl. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Noah touched his head, slightly bent down, and apologized. Are you okay? I'm fine, I'm fine. The girl held her head with one hand, while the other hand hurriedly waved, revealing a cheerful smile to Noah. It's just a touch, it's not that painful. It's my fault for moving my head closer, otherwise I wouldn't have touched it. Moving closer? Noah tilted his head in confusion, and with some suspicion, took off the side cloth bag on his right shoulder, holding it in his hand, and raised it in front of the girl. Moving closer to this? Ah. The girl's pretty face stiffened, and soon after, as if her prank was discovered, she became embarrassed. Sorry, because I was very concerned about the things inside, I unknowingly moved closer. Speaking until here, the girl simply put her hands behind her back, leaned forward, and put her pretty face in front of Noah, meeting Noah's eyes. There should be something like a bamboo sword inside, right? Hearing this, Noah was a bit surprised. Although it was not a bamboo sword, a knight's sword was still a sword, so the answer was quite close. Hee hee. The girl seemed to think that she had guessed correctly, so she closed her eyes and laughed lightly. Because I have also learned a bit of the way of the sword, and like you, I always carried a cloth bag with a bamboo sword, so I followed behind you out of curiosity. You don't mind, right? Hearing this, Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. So it was because of this that she was behind him? Noah thought that it was purely a coincidence. Right, introduce yourself. The girl seemed to have just thought of something, and smiled, as if she was very familiar with him, and said this sentence. My name is Yongsang Ivanli. Please enlighten me. Miss Yongsang. Noah also smiled. I am Noah. Noah Dole. Please enlighten me. Chapter 183. Hey, Noah. The girl named Yongsang Ivanli put her hands behind her back, turned around and looked at the shoulder bag in Noah's hand, and asked curiously. Have you also learned kendo? Yes. Noah pondered for a moment, and after finding that there was nothing to hide, he nodded. Not just kendo, I have learned fighting, boxing, aikido, judo, martial arts, and spear techniques. Wow. Ivanli suddenly exclaimed in admiration. I didn't expect you to have learned so many martial arts, then wouldn't it be advantageous for you to enter this school? Advantageous? Noah was startled for a moment before reacting. Oh right, I almost forgot that this is a school to cultivate combat skills. Since it was to cultivate combat skills, then for some students who already had some foundation, it was indeed advantageous. However, Ivanli looked at Noah with some surprise. It's not just this, right? Not just this? This time, Noah was slightly surprised. Then what is the advantage? Ivanli asked with some confusion. Don't tell me, the people who brought you here didn't tell you anything? No. Noah admitted without hesitation. After I participated in the physical examination at school yesterday, I received a notice to come here this morning. Other than knowing that if I pass the entrance examination, I can enter this school, I basically don't know anything else. Isn't that very irresponsible? Ivanli shook his head helplessly. If that's the case, then you don't know what the entrance examination is about, right? Noah nodded without hesitation, making Ivanli smile in confusion, then his expression became cheerful. Then let me tell you about this school. You're here to tell me about this school? Noah was surprised. In other words, you know about this school? Although I don't know what happened to the people who received the notice of passing the physical examination in the original school like you, but I was directly contacted by the people from the Dawn organization, and brought here. Ivan straightened his back and smiled. So, before I came here, I was already told a lot about this school. Noah's heart suddenly became lively. Originally, he thought that he would have to go through a lot of trouble before he could find out the true face of this school. He didn't expect that the truth would come so suddenly. But soon, Noah frowned again. But, are you sure you'll be fine telling me these things? Ivan didn't expect Noah to say that. He was stunned for a moment, then smiled gently. Noah is really gentle. Noah put on a slightly speechless expression. Why did you suddenly say that? That's because we've only just met. You're already thinking about me, aren't you? Ivan teased. Isn't this gentle? What kind of gentle is this? Noah was a little embarrassed and avoided Ivan's teasing gaze. I'm just curious. This school is so well kept. Isn't it bad for you to just reveal it like that? It's okay. Ivan waved his hand. Since you're already here, Noah, you're someone who has adaptability, so it's okay. Adaptability? The new word caught Noah's attention again. In that case, can you tell me more about it? Ivan smiled without saying anything. He tilted his head, as if he was thinking about how to start. After a while, he clapped his hands. You know about the Dawn organization, right? As soon as he said that, Ivan saw Noah's bitter smile. He immediately smiled bitterly and explained. The Dawn organization is a research institute that studies genetic engineering, and Haolang School was established in the name of this research institute. Genetic engineering? Noah muttered. Ivanli nodded and said. A few years ago, the Dawn organization developed a biological super-enhanced nanomachine called the Dawn Star Pattern. It's a special invention that can make the implanted person become an existence far beyond ordinary human beings. After saying that, Ivan raised a finger, and his expression began to become serious. This nanomachine called the Dawn Star Pattern is said that only 1 in 1,000 people meets the conditions for implantation, which is the adaptability I just mentioned. And the person who is implanted with the Dawn Star Pattern will have physical abilities far beyond the limits of human beings. Even their mental strength will be super enhanced, and they will obtain the ability to materialize their soul. Soul? Noah looked at Ivan in surprise. Of course, Noah knew what a soul was. Materialization of the soul? There was actually such a miracle in this world? Its official name is Blaze. It's a simple weapon that materializes from the soul of the person who is implanted with the Dawn Star Pattern. Ivan touched his full chest with one hand and said with some emotion. And the person who is implanted with the Dawn Star Pattern, and has the Blaze, and can exert power far beyond human beings will be called surpassers, which is also our next identity. Hearing this, Noah understood the true face of this school. Simply put, Haolang School was specially established by the Dawn organization to select people who had the adaptability of the Dawn Star Pattern and bring them to this school for training. The reason why Noah was here should be because he was found to have the adaptability of the Dawn Star Pattern in yesterday's physical examination and could become a surpasser. Therefore, he was notified that he had the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination. So, Noah turned his head and looked at the building in front of him. The so-called entrance examination, in fact, is the Dawn organization's people planning to implant the Dawn Star Pattern in our bodies? I used to think so, but now it doesn't seem to be the case. Ivan poked his head out from Noah's side and looked over. Since there are people like you, Noah, who didn't know anything before coming here, then the entrance examination should also give you a simple explanation and let you make a choice whether to accept the Dawn Star Pattern or not, right? Noah nodded casually, and a thoughtful light flashed in his eyes. Physical enhancement. Spiritual transcendence. Materialization of the soul. And, Blaze. Slowly, the corner of Noah's mouth slowly raised. Isn't it interesting? Do you know why I said that you are very advantageous here? Ivan elbowed Noah's ribs and said reproachfully. Since you know so many martial arts, no matter what kind of weapon your Blaze is, you can use it freely. Isn't that advantageous? Noah shrugged and didn't say anything. Next, Noah and Ivan talked about swordsmanship. However, after chatting for a while, Noah realized that Ivan's swordsmanship was nothing more than the swordsmanship that could be learned in an ordinary school. Compared to the swordsmanship that Noah learned for the sake of battle, it was more inclined towards strengthening one's body. It was completely different from the lethal swordsmanship that Noah learned for the sake of battle. Therefore, Noah only gave a few pointers, and Ivan's eyes began to shine. He was a little excited and kept chatting with Noah. Undoubtedly, they have only known each other for less than half an hour. After who knows how long, the people in front of him finally finished lining up. Noah Doria, right? The doctor in the white coat flipped through the name list in his hand and nodded at Noah. You can go in. It's your turn. Ivan patted Noah's shoulder with a bright smile on his face. Remember to tell me how you feel when you come back. Noah made an okay gesture and walked into the building under the doctor's lead. After passing through a corridor that wasn't too long, Noah came to a room that looked like a health room. There, another doctor in a white coat was sitting in a position. He was holding a gun-style needleless syringe that was filled with liquid, which immediately took away Noah's attention. Could that be the daybreak star pattern? Chapter 184. Please take a seat here. The doctor with the syringe patted the seat in front of him. Noah took off the cloth bag on his shoulder and placed it on the wall. He walked over and sat down. After Noah sat down, the doctor said to Noah, "What I'm going to say next may sound unbelievable to you, but it's the truth. Please be mentally prepared. After you explain everything to me, you'll have to make a choice whether you want to stay here or not." After he finished speaking, the doctor did not give Noah a chance to reply and continued to explain. Moreover, the explanation was much more concise than Ivan's. There were only the simple explanations of a daybreak star pattern, surpasser, and blaze. Although it was enough to let people understand what was going on, it was lacking compared to Ivan's explanation. Obviously, this doctor had repeated the explanation many times and was getting impatient. That was why he had such a reaction. However, if he had to repeat the same explanation every time he met another person, he believed that anyone would get tired of it. Noah quietly waited for the doctor to finish what he had to say. He then compared it with what Ivan had said. When he was sure that even though the degree of explanation was different, the content was similar, he nodded. I understand. I'm willing to accept the daybreak star pattern and become a surpasser. Very good. Only then did the doctor reveal a satisfied expression. He picked up the syringe in his hand and said, "The process will be a bit difficult. You have to bear with it. Otherwise, even if you have the ability to adapt, you may not be able to obtain blaze and become a surpasser." After he finished speaking, the doctor rolled up Noah's left sleeve and pressed the syringe against Noah's arm. He pulled the trigger. Poochie, with a soft sound, the liquid in the syringe was reduced at a speed visible to the naked eye and was injected into Noah's body. Noah felt as if a large lump of something was stuffed into his body. It instantly spread throughout his body. Immediately, the thing that spread out suddenly swelled and supported Noah's body. Wang! Noah felt a pain in his chest, and a geometric pattern called star tattoo that was as exquisite as a star suddenly spread out from Noah's chest and exuded intense heat. Goo! The heat spread throughout Noah's body in a short period of time, causing Noah's breathing to become sluggish. He subconsciously let out a muffled groan. Bang! Almost at the same time, with the star mark as the center, a scorching flame fiercely ignited, enveloping Noah's entire body. Chi-chi! Amidst the burning sound, a searing pain spread throughout Noah's body, causing Noah to involuntarily clench his fists. If it wasn't for the fact that he had been strengthened by the protozoa virus in the world of the Black Bullet, at this moment, even if the intense pain didn't make Noah cry out, it would make Noah's tightly clenched fists burst out with veins that represented his great forbearance. Unbeknownst to him, the doctor who was watching this scene was even more shocked. Those who had previously experienced the baptism of the Dawn Star tattoo either directly screamed out or simply fainted. A situation like Noah's, where even his expression did not change, was something that the doctors had never seen before. Not to mention this time, even in the previous implantation of the daybreak star tattoo, the doctors had never seen such a case. On the other side, Noah, who was under the baptism of the Dawn Star tattoo, clearly felt the changes in his body. First of all, the changes in his physical strength were minimal. Obviously, even the Dawn Star tattoo, which claimed to be able to make a person become a surpasser and possess a physical strength that far exceeded the limits of a human, had no way to make Noah's body, which had been tempered thousands of times and strengthened to an inhuman level by the protozoa virus, have any obvious strengthening. However, the Dawn Star tattoo could not only strengthen a person's body, it could also strengthen a person's spirit. This was something that even the protozoa virus couldn't do. Therefore, Noah clearly felt it. The vast magic power that was sleeping in his body seemed to have been awakened, boiling all of a sudden. Under Noah's perception, it rapidly rose by a large margin. This made Noah's heart startled at first, but then it was followed by joy. He didn't expect that the strengthening of his mental strength would also affect his magic power, causing his magic power to increase. That wasn't strange. Magic was also the power of the heart. If one's mental strength was sufficiently strengthened, one's willpower and thoughts would also become more tenacious. Therefore, once the mental strength was strengthened, the magic power that was directly linked to the heart would also naturally grow, and the magic power would also become stronger. This meant that even though Noah's physical strength didn't increase by much, the Dawn Star tattoo allowed Noah's magic to increase. This was an unexpected gain. However, Noah's gain wasn't over yet. This was because, through the strengthening of his mental strength, his soul could also obtain the ability to materialize, becoming a surpasser's weapon. Unfortunately, Noah was destined to not be able to enjoy the treatment of obtaining a new weapon. Bang! Just like that, the flames burning on Noah's body suddenly rose sharply, expanding more than 10 times in an instant, enveloping half of the entire infirmary. Wah! The doctor, who was watching the show from the side, was almost pounced on by the sudden expansion of the scorching flames. His face heated up, he cried out in alarm and hurriedly jumped away. In the center of the flames, Noah clutched the Dawn Star tattoo on his chest, somewhat dejectedly bending his body, his eyes suddenly widening. Only Noah knew what had happened to his body. Originally, the surpasser's mental strength seemed to have awakened Noah's soul, attempting to materialize Noah's soul. However, in that instant, the Dawn Star tattoo, that should have awakened his soul, seemed to have encountered an iron wall, completely unable to affect Noah's soul. In other words, with the power of the Dawn Star tattoo, it was simply not enough to allow Noah's soul to materialize. Noah's soul was unexpectedly strong. Moreover, it was strong to an inconceivable extent. At that moment, in order to awaken Noah's soul, the Dawn Star tattoo seemed to want to break through the iron wall that was obstructing it, causing a strong impact on Noah's body. As a result, the flames burning around Noah's body also skyrocketed. Chi chi chi. The hot flames were still constantly rolling, telling others how much effort the Dawn Star tattoo had put into Noah's body. Unfortunately, it still had no way to awaken Noah's soul. Over time, the physical strengthening and mental strengthening effects released from the Dawn Star tattoo were instead absorbed by Noah's special constitution. All the power that entered Noah's body would be absorbed by Noah himself. Now, the Dawn Star tattoo had encountered the same situation. In the end, a portion of the power that emerged from the nanomachines and was absorbed by Noah's body actually turned into a ball of flame, wrapping around a certain part of Noah's body. Noah's expression suddenly became stunned. This was because the thing that the ball of flame wrapped around was the large caliber modified revolver that was pinned to Noah's back. In the next moment, the large caliber modified revolver that was pinned to Noah's back turned into a ball of flame and drilled into Noah's body. At the same time, Noah also saw that the cloth bag on his shoulder that was leaning against the wall was also covered by the flames that rose sharply from his body. The cloth bag and the scabbard were directly burned to nothing, leaving only the bright and dazzling knight's sword. It suddenly turned into a ball of flame, flew, and drilled into Noah's body. The white knight's sword. The black revolver. The two weapons, under the inexplicable chemical reaction of the Dawn Star tattoo and Noah's constitution, turned into flames and drilled into Noah's body, becoming a part of Noah's soul. In other words, the Unite sword and the revolver replaced Noah's powerful soul that could not be awakened and became Noah's blaze. The flames gradually subsided, and in the end, all of them drilled into the star tattoo, and disappeared together with the star tattoo from Noah's body. Noah touched his chest and was speechless for a long time. Chapter 185. At this time, Ivanli was bored out of his mind. His hands were clasped behind his back as he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. His eyes kept glancing at the door in front of him. A faint doubt appeared in his beautiful cat-like eyes. It had been almost half an hour since Noah entered the building to receive the implantation of the Daybreak Star tattoo. Ivanli was puzzled about this. According to the students who had just entered to receive the implantation of the Daybreak Star tattoo, Noah obviously spent more time than the others. Could it be that some unforeseen event had occurred? Thinking of this, Ivanli couldn't help but feel a little worried. Unlike Noah, Ivanli was directly approached by the people of the Daybreak organization and was fully explained. However, like Noah, she was the only one in her original school who had the adaptability of the Daybreak Star tattoo and was qualified to enter here. Ivanli looked friendly and cheerful from beginning to end, but in fact, it was just a sign of uneasiness. Therefore, Ivanli was still a little concerned about the first person he met here, not to mention that she seemed to get along well with him. If they could enter Haoling Academy together, Ivanli would feel a lot less uneasy. However, now it seemed that something had happened to Noah. Ivanli also heard that not everyone who had the adaptability of the Daybreak Star tattoo could be successfully implanted with the Daybreak Star tattoo. There were also some people who could not withstand the implantation of the Daybreak Star tattoo and were declared to have failed the implantation, and could only leave quietly. Noah, could it be the same? Ivanli murmured worriedly. However, in the next moment, as if to dispel Ivanli's worries, the door of the building in front of him opened, and a person walked out from inside. Ivanli's eyes suddenly lit up. Just as he was about to go forward, he noticed something else. That was, Noah's clothes were changed. He was wearing a white student shirt and a blue tie. He was wearing a pair of blue trousers and a black uniform jacket. It was the uniform of the boys of Haoling Academy. Wow! Ivanli immediately moved closer and started to twirl around Noah with sparkling eyes. It's so different when you put on the uniform. I'm so envious. What's there to be envious about? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pointed in the direction of the building. It's your turn now. You'll be able to put on your uniform soon. As if confirming the authenticity of Noah's words, the doctor in the white coat walked out from inside. Next. Yongsung Ivanli. Yes. Ivan quickly responded. He patted Noah's shoulder and ran over while shouting at Noah. Wait for me here. You can't run away by yourself. After that, Ivan ran into the building as if he couldn't wait any longer. Noah was stunned, his mouth wide open. After a while, he let out a bitter laugh. I haven't agreed yet. With that said, Noah was not in a hurry to leave. While the students who were still in line were whispering and pointing at him, he walked to the side and leaned against the trunk of a tree. He closed his eyes and his consciousness sank into his body. Under the cover of Noah's excellent sensing ability, Noah could feel that there were many extremely small floating objects swimming back and forth inside his body. These extremely small floating objects that human eyes could not capture were the biological super-enhanced nanomachines that Ivanli mentioned, the Dawn Star pattern. This time, the implantation of the Dawn Star pattern brought Noah a lot of benefits. In addition to the minimal physical enhancement, Noah also gained 3 other benefits. 1. Super-enhanced mental power. 2. Due to the influence of the super-enhanced mental power, it indirectly led to the appearance of enhanced magic power. 3. Although the soul was not awakened, the Unite sword and revolver also became his blaze under the effect of the Dawn Star pattern and Noah's own physical constitution. Noah also did not expect that his physical constitution that could absorb all the power that entered his body would actually produce a chemical reaction with the Dawn Star pattern, resulting in the result of his 2 personal weapons becoming part of his soul. However, Noah could roughly guess the reason for such a change. The so-called surpasser referred to an individual who had been implanted with the dawn star pattern, and had a physical ability and mental power that far exceeded that of a human. They also obtained the ability to materialize their soul into a weapon, thus obtaining the ability blaze. The dawn star pattern that was implanted into people's bodies was a biological super-enhanced nanomachines that were so small that they could not be seen. Noah's physical constitution that could absorb all the power that entered his body was correct. However, this constitution could not absorb solid power. Could it be that if a sword pierced Noah's body could also absorb the sword that entered his body? That was naturally impossible. And the nanomachines were clearly within the range of solid power, so Noah's constitution naturally could not be effective against them. However, just because it could not be effective against the nanomachines themselves, it did not mean that it could not be effective against the nanomachines themselves. The dawn star pattern explained clearly that it used these nanomachines to strengthen a person's physical body, super-enhance their mental power, and let a person's soul obtain the ability to materialize. Once the dawn star pattern was removed, all the nanomachines in the body would be expelled from the body, and the surpasser would once again become an ordinary person. However, Noah's constitution tyrannically absorbed all the nanomachines that entered his body and produced super-enhanced effects. In other words, even if the dawn star pattern was removed, Noah's enhancement would still exist. These nanomachines were no longer able to affect Noah. Therefore, in the process of Noah's constitution tyrannically seizing the effects of the dawn star pattern, the nanomachines were still producing effects. In addition, it seemed that there was no way for Noah's overly powerful soul to materialize, resulting in some conflicts and unexpected changes. The specific manifestation of this change was the effect of materializing the soul into a weapon had been reversed, and it became the effect of the weapon being spiritualized. The knight's sword and revolver thus became Noah's blaze. Therefore, in addition to strengthening his body, mental power, and magical power, Noah also obtained two abilities from the dawn star pattern. One was to materialize the blaze that had become part of Noah's soul. The other was a kind of limited ability. Therefore, Noah was particularly puzzled. The reason why the knight's sword and revolver became the blaze was because the ability to materialize the soul was reversed. This was excusable. But where did this inexplicable, limited ability come from? Noah. Just when Noah was still puzzled, a weak voice woke Noah, who was immersed in his thoughts, causing Noah to open his eyes. Ivanli appeared in front of Noah at an unknown time, and she had changed her clothes. It was a girl's uniform with blue shoulder guards and a white frilly collar on top of a white shirt. The part below the chest was wrapped in a black vest, and the lower half of the body was a blue pleated skirt. Originally, Ivanli was a very beautiful and cute girl, and with this uniform, she looked more youthful and lively, causing people to be unable to help but look askance. However, Ivanli's expression looked very tired, which gave Noah a fright. "What's wrong? Why do you look so tired?" "Of course I'm tired," Ivanli said as if she wanted to cry but had no tears. Although there were instructions before implanting the dawn star pattern, who knew that the process would be so painful, I almost thought that I was going to be burned to death. Only then did Noah understand. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Ah!" Ivanli suddenly pointed at Noah with a face full of anger. "I'm going through so much trouble, and you're making fun of me." After saying that, Ivanli raised her fist and pretended to hit, causing Noah to laugh out loud. He dodged Ivanli's fist and ran away. "Don't run." A man and a woman, one running and one chasing, left the scene and disappeared at the end of the road under the backdrop of cherry blossoms. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.